Chapter 774. The headquarters of the Black Star Corps became lively. In the half a month after the recruitment order was issued, countless spaceships visited the headquarters of the Black Star Corps every day. They were all new members selected by Philip and the Department of Affairs. They came to the headquarters to meet with Black Star and wait for the inspection of the Army commander. Before the fleet that went to the battle had even returned to the headquarters, all the new members had already formed a long line outside the satellite base, waiting for the return of Black Star. Looking up from the surface of planet Golden Gate, the headquarters of the Black Star Corps that covered the sky seemed to have an additional ring formed by spaceships. The light was like a fog, like a ribbon. Another large batch of new members has arrived. In a metal base on the surface of the headquarters, the instructor Brock, who was supervising the training of the reserve members, looked out of the porthole and could not help but sigh. It had been more than 10 years since Brock joined the Black Star Corps. He had personally witnessed the history of the Black Star Corps, how it had grown from an ordinary mercenary group to a behemoth that had allied with a universal civilization. Dark Star had long been destroyed, and the discrimination problem of Ghidorah had basically been solved. Now, the Ghidorah hybrids who were wandering around gradually returned to the embrace of the Ghidorah civilization. Without a goal to strive for, Brock buried his past and decided to hide his past as a Dark Star spy forever. He put away all his thoughts and completely submitted to the Black Star Corps. However, what Brock did not know was that Han Shao had always known about his identity. It was just that Dark Star had already been destroyed, and Han Shao was not prepared to deal with this obedient spy, keeping him to work. Although the work in the army was tough, after giving up his identity as a Dark Star, Brock's mentality became very relaxed. He gradually fell in love with the process of nurturing batch after batch of army warriors. Under Han Zhao's care, he had been an instructor for 10 years. He was used to this responsibility and was getting more and more used to it. Now, he was a veteran in the army, and he was also the #1 figure in the Ghidorah faction. Due to the reputation of the Black Star Corps in Ghidorah, many Ghidorah people worked in the army and formed the Ghidorah faction. This was one of the many factions in the army, and with the current scale of the Black Star Corps, there were naturally many factions within the army. When he looked up to observe the spaceships in the sky, among the large group of spaceships in orbit around the satellite, there were 3 passengers on one of the spaceships staring at the Black Star Corps headquarters. It was a small, standard spaceship of the most common model in space, which was rather inconspicuous. Can we really sneak in? The Black Star Corps won't be careless, right? A man with thick eyebrows and big eyes said hesitantly. He was a certain humanoid species with smooth, shiny silver skin that had a metallic texture. He wore a dark black cloak, and the exposed skin was covered with complicated and exquisite magic patterns. There's no other way. If we want to see that person, we can only sneak into the Black Star Corps headquarters, another person said. Another person spoke. This was a mixed-blood human with bright red dragon scales on both sides of his cheeks. He was tall and sturdy, about 4 meters tall. He wore a simple metal vest, revealing his muscular arms. He looked extraordinarily valiant. Don't worry. Even if we're discovered, we can pretend to be people who want to try our luck to join the Black Star Corps. They'll at most chase us away in public. There won't be any danger. The last person leaned against the wall and spoke lazily. He wore a tight, custom-made combat suit, and 2 pairs of arms extended from his shoulders. One of his arms was resting behind his head, appearing very relaxed. The other hand was playing with a silver mechanical alloy dagger, and the other 2 arms were resting on his waist. He gave off a frivolous aura. These 3 people were not new members of the Black Star Corps like the others. They had other motives, and the silver-skinned man seemed to be the leader of the 3. Right at this moment, on the other side of the starry sky outside the porthole, streams of hyperdrive light suddenly shot over and stopped above planet Golden Gate. The Black Star Corps fleet had finally returned to the headquarters. Whoa, so many new members want to join. Han Zhao's eyes lit up when he saw the spaceships in the headquarters. This is only the first batch of new members. They're all waiting for you, Master. In Han Zhao's field of vision connected to the quantum network, Philip suddenly appeared, and his tiny body appeared in front of Han Zhao's eyes. I suggest that we send out the Mech Legion to test the actual combat strength of these new members. Those who don't meet the requirements don't have the right to join Master. On the other side, the usually silent combat artificial intelligence, Sparta, also revealed its virtual body. Its appearance was that of a figure wrapped in heavy mechanical armor. Its face could not be seen clearly. Only a pair of cold eyes could be seen, and its voice was deep and powerful. Han Zhao's virtual technology had long been perfected. He had studied Rista's data structure and imitated it. He had also given his auxiliary artificial intelligence the ability to think and a unique personality to increase its computing ability. His brain was connected to the quantum network, so he could monitor the movements of the auxiliary artificial intelligence at any time. He did not have to worry about any accidents happening, and it was just like raising a pet. Furthermore, not only did it not need anyone to clean up its mess, it would not throw a tantrum, and it could even help him with his chores. How could there be a more perfect pet in the world? In the quantum network, Han Zhao's thoughts turned into a torrent of data tentacles, bringing Philip in front of him. You can open the spaceport of the headquarters now. After my fleet lands, let these new members come and see me. Understood. The spaceport of the headquarters opened, and the Black Star fleet slowly landed. The many new members who had been waiting for many days finally received the notification that they were allowed to land in the headquarters. In an instant, the spaceship ring of the headquarters split into more than 10 streams that flowed into the various spaceports. The countless mechanical assistants of the headquarters had already been activated to receive all the new members. Most of the new members were led to the spacious hall of the headquarters. When everyone was present, they would meet Han Zhao together. The new members who had reached the Calamity grade had special treatment. They would pass through the internal passageway and head to the conference room to meet Han Zhao and the army officers in advance. Han Zhao brought a group of officers to the conference room. There were more than 10 people in the room, and they all turned to look at Han Zhao. All of them stood up. Your Excellency Black Star, Army Commander. They were the first batch of Calamity grade supers recruited this time, and they came from different star systems. Now that they saw the new Beyond Grade A in person, they were secretly excited. In the eyes of ordinary people, Calamity grade supers were already unreachable figures. However, when facing a Beyond Grade, most Calamity grade supers felt similar to how ordinary people looked at them. Furthermore, there was an additional layer of yearning and desire. Hello. Han Zhao smiled. After becoming a Beyond Grade A, not only had his strength increased, but his horizons had also been raised. If it was in the past, he would definitely have laughed on the spot if more than 20 Calamity grade supers joined the army together. However, he was much calmer now. He could wait until there was no one around. Although the name of a Beyond Grade A had a lot of appeal, Calamity grade supers were still high-end combatants. Many Grade A supers were not willing to join other organizations. Even after becoming a Beyond Grade, a Han technician did not look down on Calamity grade supers. To be able to recruit more than 10 high-end combatants at once was the highest record in the history of the Black Star Corps. Han Zhao chatted with the Calamity grade supers one by one and encouraged them. These people were all high-end combatants and would definitely become officers of the army in the future. The scale of the army was too large, and Han Zhao did not have the time to check the attributes of every new member like before. Thus, he only checked the higher-level newcomers, which were these Calamity grade supers. After quietly checking everyone's attributes, Han Zhao nodded to himself. Although none of them have a molding talent, the strongest one has reached Grade A+. His combat strength is not bad, and he's still a small boss. Turning around to look at Hela, Han Zhao said, "The Black Star Guards are my elite troops, and Grade A is the entry requirement. Hardaway is also a member of the Black Star Guards. This is the captain of the Black Star Guards, Hela. The Black Star Guards have only been established not long ago and are about to be expanded. She and the other Black Star Guards will test your abilities and select some of you to join the Black Star Guards." The eyes of the Calamity grade supers sparkled. The Black Star Guards were obviously the personal guards of Black Star. To be able to follow around a Beyond Grade A, this position was very tempting to them. Compared to the benefits of ordinary officers, they valued learning from the experience of a beyond grade A super more. After all, at their level, it was too easy to earn money. The attraction of material comforts was limited, and what they pursued was more of a promotion. The Black Star Guards left with the Calamity Grade Supers. Han Xiao brought the other officers and was about to meet the tens of millions of new army members in the crowded hall. At this moment, Philip suddenly appeared. Master Hum, I discovered a spaceship that did not pass the identification test. There are 3 people on board who were not invited by us. They are not new members of the Army, and there is no information about them in the database. Their identities are unknown. They are currently entering the 6th spaceport. Do you want to see their information? Hum? Oh, they might be here to fish in troubled waters and try to join the Army. Just chase them away. The images of the 3 people were transmitted to his mind. Before Han Xiao could finish, he suddenly paused, and his eyes slowly widened. Seeing that Han Xiao did not respond, Philip tilted his head and called out in confusion, Master? Who? Han Xiao let out a long sigh. His eyes sparkled, and he said, Don't stop them. Let them in and pretend that you don't know who they are. Secretly activate all the surveillance cameras in the Army and lock onto their movements. Okay. After leaving the quantum network, Han Xiao rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes. Who would have thought that these 3 ferocious people would appear in my territory at this time? Looks like the butterfly effect I've caused is spreading more and more. They're most likely here to find her. The spaceship entered the orbit and stopped in the warehouse. The silver-skinned man, the dragon-scaled man, and the 4-handed man stepped onto the crowded dock and looked around amidst the commotion. There was no alarm as expected, and no mechanical assistant came to confirm the identities of the 3 of them. No one came to bother them. They got in so smoothly. The security measures of the Black Star Corps are too crude. It's as good as not having any. The 4-handed man curled his lips. Even my mother planet, which is about to be destroyed by those mad scientists, is safer than this place. The silver-skinned man was a little nervous, and he said softly, Let's blend in the crowd first, then find an opportunity to split up. We must not be discovered. The dragon-scale man nodded and responded in a low voice. The silver-skinned man squeezed his fingers and muttered, Hopefully, we can find the rumored Rosalind. All living together for 2 days, July is awesome _smiley face, __ PS. Yesterday, during the annual meeting, Little Dragon, Squid, and I went on stage together. If nothing goes wrong, you should be able to see us on Dragon TV at 9 p.m. on January 13th. Epsilon? Epsilon. Chapter 775. All the new members who were not Calamity Grade Supers gathered in the hall of the headquarters. It was extremely noisy. Boom! The dome of the hall suddenly opened, and many officers descended from the sky, landing on the most conspicuous platform in the hall. They stood in a row and looked down at the millions of new members below. That's the Chief Administrative Officer of the Army, Sylvia. Beside her is the Fleet Commander, Haluz. They're old subordinates of Black Star. The Deputy Commander of the Army, Loggy, is said to be the strongest general under Black Star. Hardaway became Black Star's Black Star Guards some time ago. He should be the strongest. But why didn't the Black Star Guards appear? After many years of fighting in the Secret War, the officers of the Black Star Corps had made their own names in the galaxy. The new members in the hall all knew these officers. This time, a light flashed on the platform, and Han Xiao walked out of the void dimension. He nodded to the new members. Everyone below the platform was excited. Facing a beyond grade A who stood at the peak, most of them were excited and nervous. Welcome to the Black Star Corps. Han Xiao glanced at the crowded hall and opened his mouth to give a speech, but his mind was on the 3 uninvited guests. While he was giving a speech to welcome the newcomers, he was also sharing the vision of the monitor through the quantum network. He was multitasking and watching the actions of the 3 people. And these 3 uninvited guests had already found Rosalind. Rosalind was a special existence among the officers of the Army. She was the cultural instructor. Due to the uniqueness of her ability, she rarely appeared in front of outsiders and usually stayed in the army training camp to teach people. After returning with the fleet, she did not follow Han Shao to show the new members, but went straight back to her room in the headquarters training camp. However, she was stopped by 3 people on the way. "Why are you looking for me?" Rosalind sized up the silver-skinned, dragon-scaled, and 4-armed people in front of her and raised her brows. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Edmund, and these 2 are my friends. The burly one is Cade, and the 4-armed one is Haywall," Edmund said. The dragon-scaled Cade nodded in greeting, while the 4-handed Hewer waved his hand in greeting. Rosalind narrowed her eyes and suddenly said, "You're not members of the army, right?" "Yes, but we mean you no harm. We just want to talk to you." Edmund lowered his voice. "I'm sure you'll be interested." After a moment of silence, Rosalind nodded slowly when Edmund was a little nervous. "Okay, come with me." As she spoke, she turned to lead the way. Edmund was delighted and followed behind with his 2 companions. When they reached a corner where no one was around, Rosalind stopped and turned around. "Speak. What do you want to talk to me about?" "The 3 of us are from the Sea of Star Spirits and are planning to establish a business. I hope to invite you to join us." Edmund did not beat around the bush to save time and went straight to the point. "Interesting. You came to the headquarters of the Black Star Corps and tried to poach a beyond Grade A officer. You sure are gutsy." Rosalind had a playful expression. "Tell me about your so-called business. You better not disappoint me." Edmund licked his lips, lowered his voice, and said, "We want to overthrow the 3 universal civilizations." Rosalind's smile froze on her face. "Let me confirm." Rosalind's mouth twitched. "Is your brain damaged? I know it sounds inconceivable, but this is indeed my ambition." Edmund's tone became slightly agitated. "The 3 universal civilizations have dominated the galaxy for too long. In order to maintain their dominance, they use the name of the Keepers of Order to play with the rules they set, cutting off the future of one race after another. But it's also because the 3 universal civilizations established order that the universe has its current peace. If they disappear, countless civilizations will once again erupt into wars that sweep across the universe in order to compete for hegemony. Billions of lives will die in the flames of war, and in the end, a new ruler similar to the 3 universal civilizations will be born. Even worse, all civilizations might be destroyed. Don't you know this?" Rosalind frowned. "I know. This is the price to pay for overthrowing the current rules, but..." Edmund took a deep breath. "This is what a revolution is. A revolution is to create a better era. The current era is orderly, and life is rich. Since you can survive, why do you want a revolution? If you really overthrow the 3 universal civilizations, can you guarantee that the future will be better than now? No one can guarantee what will happen in the future. I don't know if a revolution can create a better era, but I'm not willing to ignore the problems that have been exposed just because I'm greedy for the current peace and allow the wrong things to continue existing." Edmund shook his head. "In the universal era, material abundance is enough to satisfy everyone's desire to eat and wait for death. Make them lose their will to fight, turn them into walking corpses, and allow everyone to live. Basic material needs are no longer the reason for our revolution." Rosalind narrowed her eyes. "Then, what are you fighting for? For the races that are being bullied, or for your own ambition?" Edmund shook his head. "Neither. I'm not an ambitious person, nor am I a great man who cares about the people. The revolution itself is my ambition." Rosalind sized Edmund up again. He did not seem to have much of an aura, but he was actually so daring. With the status of the 3 universal civilizations, he was basically going against the heavens. "If the revolution succeeds, what will you do? Replace the 3 universal civilizations?" "I don't know," Edmund answered honestly. "Why me?" "To overthrow the authority of the 3 universal civilizations in the hearts of countless people, we need your ability. Plus, I've heard of your deeds." Edmund said softly, "You used to be an ambitious reformer, didn't you?" Rosalind heard this, lowered her eyes, and did not speak. After a long silence, she raised her eyes again and slowly asked, "How many people do you have now?" "Only the 3 of us. You haven't even established your organization, and you want to recruit me? Rosalind's tone was incredulous. Her expression seemed to say, "Who gave you the courage?" Edmund bowed and said sincerely, "Yes, but my sincerity is not fake at all. I hope to gather like-minded people and build a business together. Rosalind, I hope you can consider my proposal." At this moment, Rosalind seemed to see Black Star's shadow in Edmund. They're both big liars. "I'll consider it. Give me your communicator number." Rosalind hesitated and did not make a decision immediately. After exchanging communicator numbers, Edmund's face was filled with joy. This time, Cade, who had not interrupted, spoke. "We're done here. Let's leave the Black Star Corps headquarters quickly. Don't get discovered." Edmund nodded, said goodbye to Rosalind, and hurriedly left with the other two. Rosalind opened her mouth, but did not tell the three of them in the end. They thought they had snuck in, but in reality, the Black Star Corps surveillance system must have discovered them long ago. In the headquarters, nothing could escape Black Star's notice. However, she did not know why no one came to capture the three of them. Because of this, Rosalind was curious. Did Black Star let the three of them in on purpose? Beep. At this time, Rosalind's communicator suddenly rang, and Philip's voice came through. "Master wants to see you, When Edmund and the other two headed to the spaceport, the inspection in the hall had already ended. Everyone had left, and the passageways were filled with people. The three of them heaved a sigh of relief. With the crowd as a disguise, they felt that the chances of being discovered were much lower. When they passed by the hall, Han Xiao was still there. The three of them quickly looked away, not daring to attract Han Zhao's attention, and left with the crowd. They arrived at the spaceport, took back the spaceship, and left the Black Star Corps headquarters. Only then did Edmund completely relax. "I keep feeling that something is wrong," Cade suddenly said with a frown. "Our infiltration was way too smooth." Even Howard, who was complaining at the start, felt that the situation was strange. "The Black Star Corps headquarters can't be so defenseless. If we were assassins, we might have already killed a few officers." The three of them could not understand. They did not think that it was Han Xiao who let them in on purpose. To them, they were just nameless people. How would a beyond grade A know them? In order to avoid being chased, Edmund did not dare delay and quickly entered hyperdrive. The spaceship turned into a stream of light and disappeared. At the same time, in the corridor leading to the officers' meeting room, Han Xiaoxin moved, and a smile appeared on his face. In the vision of the observer's mark, Edmund's actions were clearly displayed. He purposely stayed in the hall and blocked the path of the three of them so that he could secretly throw an observer's mark at Edmund. "I really didn't expect to see the leader of the Silver Revolutionary Army here," Han Xiao sighed in his heart. These three were the founders of the Silver Revolutionary Army, important figures who would lead a version in the future. These future trendsetters had not yet matured and were still at the initial stage of building a team. They had not officially formed the Silver Revolutionary Army. Edmund was a restless revolutionary, a challenger to the authority of the three universal civilizations. Perhaps he did not even know how high his revolutionary career would reach. Taking in Rosalind was just a casual move by Han Xiao. He did not expect to really bait the Silver Revolutionary Army, and a core member at that. While surprised, Han Xiao decided to wait and see. He did not plan to kill Edmund and the other two. The Silver Revolutionary Army had no conflict of interest with him, and they might even become his chess pieces. Right now, Edmund and the other two were still very weak. Han Xiao could easily kill them, but killing the Silver Revolutionary Army storyline in advance would not benefit him at all. If he ran over to the Red Empire and told them that he had killed a group of people who would shake their rule in the future, the Red Empire's response would most likely be one word, "Oh." Therefore, Han Xiao did not chase Edmund and the other two away. He was prepared to form a good relationship with the future Silver Revolutionary Army. Furthermore, he had unknowingly thrown an observer's mark at Edmund. Walking into the meeting room, Rosalind was the only one inside. She sat on the chair and looked up at Han Xiao. "You were indeed the one who let those three in." Rosalind shook her head. Han Xiao sat down, tapped his fingers on the table, and asked, "What do you think of them?" "What do you mean?" What do you think of their proposal? Rosalind smiled and said, Are you interrogating me to see if I will betray the army? Han Xiao shook his head. It's not really a betrayal. You're Reynolds' sister. You're just staying in the army to help. I didn't say that I would tie you to me for the rest of your life. You're a restless person. I knew that long ago. Hearing that, Rosalind said honestly, I'm staying in the army for 2 reasons. First, it's for the generous salary. No matter what I want to do, I have to accumulate some initial capital. Second, it's because of my criminal record. You said that as long as I help you, you will remove my criminal record. Third, maybe it's to repay you for saving me. Ahem, just a little. I know. You don't have to emphasize it. Han Xiao laughed. He paused and asked, So what are your thoughts? Because he had saved Rosalind in advance, he did not know if she would still join the Silver Revolutionary Army like in his previous life. Humph, there are only a few of them. They don't have any benefits at all. They want me to join the revolution with just a few words. They really don't have any self-awareness. I don't like the 3 of them. Rosalind looked down on them for a while before changing the topic. However, to be honest, overthrowing the 3 universal civilizations seems very interesting. Damned Sundara, isn't that great? Han Xiao was helpless. Personality determined fate, indeed. For a restless reformer like Rosalind, even if she was grateful for his kindness, she still could not change her personality. If you've made up your mind, come find me at any time. I'll allow you to leave. Han Xiao stood up. Although Rosalind was very useful, everyone had their own ambitions. He did not plan to force her to stay. Rosalind would most likely be the backbone of the Silver Revolutionary Army in the future. He had a good relationship with her, which meant that he could set up a trap in the Silver Revolutionary Army in advance. He could also let Edmund and the others know through Rosalind that they could successfully sneak in today because he turned a blind eye. Furthermore, if he let Rosalind go, he might have a chance to force Reynolds to issue a mission in the future. Han Technician still had not given up on the perfect mechanical sense. The Silver Revolutionary Army had been quietly developing in the various star fields outside of the central galaxy at the start, only bursting out after accumulating enough strength. It had not been formed yet. The Crimson Tide of version 3.0 has only been around for half a year, and the Secret War main storyline has already come to an end. The development of the Flickering World is imminent, and it's time for those Liver Emperor players to explore. The Silver Revolutionary Army has also appeared. As the storyline of the version progresses, the strength of the players will become more and more obvious. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. The plan to expand his leak farm had to be put on the agenda. He could not just limit it to the Shattered Star Ring. It just so happened that he responded to the call of the Red Empire and made a trip to the Central Galaxy. This was an opportunity. At the same time, on the Clint Mother Planet, in the Red Empire Diplomatic Building, a secret meeting had been going on for a long time. Bang! The Clint Diplomatic Ambassador slammed the table and stood up with a face full of anger. Zoel, don't go overboard. Why did the Red Empire ask us to give up on the proposal to redivide the Star Cluster regions to the Galaxy Civilization Conference Court? You're asking us to give up all the hard work we've put into the Secret War for the past 10 years. Whose side are you on? Zoel wiped the spit on his face and narrowed his eyes. I'll always be on the side of the Empire. Chapter 776. The Clint Diplomatic Ambassador stared at Zoel angrily and pointed at him, speechless. I've already explained the exact situation, Zoel said slowly. The dynasty has decided not to take a stand on this issue. You can insist on submitting the proposal, but the success rate is very low. The Arcane Church will reject your application. I represent the dynasty and only suggest that you give up on the idea of submitting the proposal. I'm not interfering with your decision. If you insist, we won't stop you. I don't understand, the Clint ambassador said angrily. Why is the dynasty helping Purple Crystal on this? The dynasty's upper echelons have their own considerations. Is it because of the evolution cube? Is that why you suddenly changed your stance? I'll say it again. The dynasty's upper echelons have their own considerations. Zoel emphasized. Furthermore, you're wrong. The dynasty only sticks to its own position, and this rule has never changed. All this while, the dynasty has never expressed support for your plan. The Clint ambassador clenched his teeth. They did not think much about it when the tyrant was defeated in the battle, but they did not expect it to be their turn so soon. Clint had invested a huge amount of resources into the secret war. As a follower of the Red Empire, the Red Empire's attitude was to allow it. However, now that the Red Empire had backed out at such a crucial moment, this meant that Clint's 10 years of investment might be for naught. Of course, they were not happy. No matter how he thought about it, the Clint ambassador felt that this was because of the Black Star Corps. Although Zoel did not explain why the Red Empire did this, he knew that this was definitely because of Black Star. This time, Zoel changed the topic. The development of the flickering world is about to begin. I hope you can deploy your troops as soon as possible. The exploration mission will be quite heavy. The Clint ambassador understood. This was most likely the Red Empire's compensation in disguise, allowing them to obtain more benefits in the flickering world. He pondered for a while before saying, "Since this is the dynasty's intention, we'll consider the proposal again. As for the development of the flickering world, rest assured, we'll definitely do our best." Hearing this, Zoel smiled faintly. After discussing official matters, they chatted for a while before the Clint ambassador hurriedly bid farewell. After walking out of the Red Empire's diplomatic building, the Clint diplomatic ambassador boarded the vehicle and turned on his communicator to contact the upper echelons. He reported the situation just now and caused a heated debate. In the end, the higher-ups came to a conclusion. They could not do anything to the Red Empire. No matter how dissatisfied they were, they could only endure it. Every Clint high-ranking official felt aggrieved. After becoming the lackey of a universal civilization, they could only do things according to the other party's wishes. What they hated the most was their new ally, Black Star, who had been causing trouble in the dark. It was such a good situation, but it was ruined by one person. It could be said that Black Star had single-handedly overturned their 10-year plan. A universal civilization protecting their own interests will definitely affect our interests. To them, we're nothing. After turning off the communicator, the Clint diplomatic ambassador leaned back in his seat and looked at the scenery outside the window. More than 7 years ago, Han Xiao had taken advantage of the limelight as a beyond grade A seed to expand his army, which had laid the foundation for the next few years. He had experience, and this time, he made full use of the influence of his advancement to the beyond grade A realm. Furthermore, with the protection of the Red Empire and the Amethyst civilization, most of the opposing forces had stopped, and the expansion of the army was extremely smooth. Countless free supers in the Shattered Star Ring responded to the recruitment of the Black Star Corps, and batches of new members entered the army. In a short period of time, the number of members of the Black Star Corps swelled once again. The number of members in the various star systems in the Colton Star Cluster had exceeded 300 million. The ordinary members were secondary. The number of Grade B supers was also in the tens of millions, and there were more than 40 Grade A supers. Just in terms of the number of high-level combatants, the Black Star Corps had already surpassed most star system civilizations. With the name of a beyond Grade A and Han Zhao's influence, the Black Star Corps expanded without restraint. With the investments of many financial groups and the support of the Amethyst civilization, Han Xiao had sufficient funds to support the rapid expansion of the army. An astronomical amount of anas was thrown into the logistics department to build more battleships and build a new satellite base to place more divisions in the Colton Star Cluster. The expansion of the Black Star Corps was in full swing, and the galactic residents of the Shattered Star Ring were all paying attention to the aftermath of the battle. They were concerned about how the Black Star Corps joining the Red Empire would affect the Secret War. During this period of time, the Secret War had entered a truce period. After the battle, both Bloodshed Land and Section 0 had tacitly agreed not to start a war. It was eerily quiet. Countless galactic residents were concerned about the direction of the Secret War and saw it as a signal. From the current situation, the next step of the Secret War would indirectly represent the outcome of the battle between the two parties. Just as everyone was looking forward to it, news of the secret war broke out that shook the entire star field. There was no battle, no announcement. Bloodshed Land gave up all their strongholds in West Wind, Kaya, Chida, and the other star systems without any warning and withdrew from the Colton star cluster. When this news spread, all the people and organizations paying attention to the secret war were shocked. Bloodshed Land represented Clint's attitude. Withdrawing their troops was equivalent to Clint giving up on their invasion plan. Giving up the results of 10 years of war meant that Purple Crystal had won this war effortlessly. The secret war that had lasted for 10 years had ended just like that. No one knew what kind of agreement the two parties had reached behind the scenes. From an outsider's point of view, Clint giving up was definitely related to the fact that the Black Star Corps had joined the Red Empire. There had to be some logic behind it. The most likely scenario was that the Black Star Corps had somehow forced Clint to give up on their invasion by joining the Red Empire and helped Purple Crystal win the secret war. Tracing back to the source, the greatest contribution could only be attributed to Black Star himself. Advancing to beyond Grade A, snatching the Evolution Cube, forcing the Tyrant to retreat, joining the Red Empire. This series of actions was the only reason why the entire situation had been turned upside down. This also meant that Black Star had ended the secret war by himself. This was the truth in the eyes of the entire star field. The aftermath of the battle had yet to dissipate, and the end of the secret war had caused the shattered star ring to boil again. Grade S Faction Mission, Secret War, Section 0 has ended. Calculating mission. Calculation complete. Mission rating. Unbelievable, you have received 600,000 EXP, x5 random rewards, plus 40,000 Amethyst Civilization contribution points, plus 1 legendary point. Star Cluster Legendary Point. Colton Star Cluster Hero of the Secret War. You have made a huge contribution in the Secret War and are the hero of the Amethyst Civilization's victory. The people of the Star Cluster will remember your contributions. You have received 2 political assets. Political assets. 2 Amethyst Civilization. You are loved by the people of the Amethyst Civilization. When trading with the Amethyst Civilization citizens, you will be able to buy goods at a lower price and sell them at a higher price. The Amethyst Civilization is willing to listen to your requests. You can make suggestions to the Amethyst Civilization. According to the rationality of your suggestion, the Amethyst Civilization has a small chance of accepting your suggestion. This is one of the symbols of political influence. Your contributions will be praised in the universe. Plus 45% favorability accumulation efficiency when interacting with certain organizations or people. You have valuable EXP. Plus 45% experience gain efficiency in all forms. Remarks. The condition for the above effect to take effect is to maintain reverence with the Amethyst Civilization. Dungeon spawned. Secret War. Oh? The Secret War main storyline mission has finally been completed. On the fixed star closest to Planet Golden Gate, clusters of hot fixed star energy wrapped around a figure. His skin was bright red from absorbing enough radiation. Batches of new members joined. While the army was expanding, Han Xiao took some time to practice the Heber Stellar Furnace training technique. While he was taking a bath on the surface of the fixed star, his interface suddenly had a reaction. A series of mission completion notifications popped up. Only then did he know that the secret war had ended. With a thought, he connected his brain to the quantum network and instantly found the news of Bloodshed Land retreating. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled, and he smiled. Looks like Zoel has fulfilled the agreement and convinced Clint much faster than I thought. Clint was quite decisive in making Bloodshed Land retreat. However, Han Xiao knew that Clint would definitely be unhappy. They would not dare to be unhappy with the Red Empire, and they would most likely transfer their hatred to him. This was something that could not be helped. In order to make up for Clint's hurt feelings, the Red Empire would definitely have made a deal with them behind the scenes. However, he did not know the exact details. Han Xiao did not care about offending Clint. While the two of them were allies in name, they had fought for 10 years, and the accumulated hatred could not be resolved so easily. Not only did Clint hate him, but he also remembered the countless assassinations that Clint had committed in the past 10 years. He was also unhappy with them and would not give face to his enemies. Glancing at the mission reward, Han Xiaoxin could not help but be overjoyed. His 10 years of hard work for the Secret War had not been in vain. This time, he had not made a loss. The reward for an S-rank mission was indeed generous. Even to him, who was rich in leaks, 6 billion experience was not too little. Furthermore, the 5 random rewards were more than the 3 random rewards he had received from the Bloodline mission. 1-star cluster legendary point was not bad either. Together with the 3-star field legendary points he had obtained from the battle with the Tyrant, the amount of experience he could give to the players had almost doubled. The 2 political assets were the biggest reward. These things were extremely rare and could only be obtained from extremely difficult missions. The efficiency of obtaining experience had increased by another 45%. Together with the 30% from Ghidorah's political assets, it was equivalent to him permanently activating the 175 times experience card. After becoming a Beyond Grade A, the experience requirement to level up had increased by a level. With the increase from the political assets, the efficiency of harvesting leaks would greatly increase. After the experience penalty of more than 10 months, he should be able to accumulate a large amount of experience to level up. The Secret War dungeon that was created was a byproduct of the main storyline mission. Just like the Six Nations and Germinal Organization dungeon, he could cut out the battle scenes he had personally experienced during the 10 years of the Secret War to form a dungeon crystal. Han Xiao immediately thought of another use for the dungeon crystal. The players only participated in the final phase of the Secret War. The previous 10 years of war were just a background introduction to the version for them. Maybe I can use the dungeon mode to show the players the war that the Black Star Corps experienced in the past 10 years, allowing them to personally experience the rise of the army and understand the history of the army. This will be beneficial for strengthening the sense of belonging the players to the faction. After thinking for a while, Han Xiao felt that this idea was feasible, and a series of ideas appeared in his mind. I can also give them an honorary title within the army, only given to the players who participated in the Secret War. This will prove that they have witnessed the rise of the army and let the newcomers know that they are veterans. In the future, they will be able to enjoy a permanent discount within the army, which will help retain the players thinking of this. Han Xiao could not help but open the players' forums. He had obtained the main storyline mission of the Secret War 10 years in advance, so it was inevitable that he would receive a high rating. Furthermore, the final victory of the Secret War would also increase the mission rating. Not only him, but all the players of the Black Star Corps would benefit. Han Xiao wanted to see how the players would react to this. Thinking about it, the topic is a little sensitive, so it's better to explain. The rise of the Silver Revolutionary Army was due to many factors. I've written about a leader with great ambition before, but this time, I'll change it. I'll just hate him. Chapter 777. As soon as he opened the forums, 2 hot posts jumped into his sight. They were the latest episode of the Galaxy Times and Pork Buns video. Both of their titles mentioned him, and the Galaxy Times even used his name as the subtitle of this episode. The title of this episode was Galaxy Times, Legendary Leader, Black Star. Yo, the Galaxy Times made me into a special episode. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed. The Galaxy Times would usually introduce the major events and storylines that the players of the various star fields had experienced. Sometimes, they would make a special episode about some major events or people. For example, when version 3.0 had just started, the Galaxy Times had made a special episode to analyze the different storylines that the Crimson Tide had brought to the players of the various star fields. The Secret War in the Shattered Star Ring was just one of them. If he remembered correctly, although the Galaxy Times had mentioned him many times, this was the first time they had used his name as the subtitle of an episode. Thinking about it, he was a famous person in several versions and became the first person to step into the Beyond Grade A realm in the player's impression. It was indeed worthy of a special episode. Han Xiao then looked at Pork Bun's video. The title was Black Star Corps Special, Rise of the Starfield. These 2 videos were the most popular posts at the moment. Han Xiao did not open them immediately. He was used to glancing at the ordinary posts to see what the other players were talking about recently. Looking down, countless new posts were refreshed, and the content was almost all about the Secret War main storyline mission. Just now, the other players' Secret War main storyline missions were also completed at the same time, which surprised many players. This new topic filled the forums instantly. What the F***CK? The main storyline mission has been completed. A notification popped up on the interface. I wasn't prepared at all. I just saw the news. Bloodshed Land actually retreated. The news said that Purple Crystal originally had little hope. This time, it was the army commander who turned the tide and made Clank give up their invasion. My old Black is amazing. The mission rating is so high. Is it because we won the Secret War? That's for sure. It's written in the details of the mission rating that winning the war will raise the mission rating by a huge margin. This is too good. The army commander is amazing. What are you doing? Wah, I'm crying. I went to do the Mercenary Alliance's storyline. If I had known that there would be such an additional benefit, I would have participated in the Secret War as well. I regret it so much. Regret +1. To the brother above, please hug me and cry with me. In the forums, most of the Black Star Corps players were overjoyed. This was a grade S main storyline mission, and its evaluation had been raised by a large margin. The difficulty was extremely high, and this was a blessing from the heavens, allowing the army players to earn a huge sum of money. Only the army players had such a benefit. Many players were in a good mood, and like Han Xiao even more. Amidst the excitement, some people who were gloating thought of Summer Night Flower and once again posted the post of him encouraging the army players to betray him, pulling it out and whipping his corpse. Summer Night Flower, come out and take a beating. Summer Night Flower, how do you feel now? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Are you happy? Hey, why aren't you teaching us the right way to play the Secret War now? Didn't they say that Bloodshed Land would win? How did it become like this? The truth is in the hands of a few, huh? You're the only one who's clear, huh? Xiaiji, do you have any new tricks? Summer Night Flower had made 3 guesses back then, but today, the facts had proven that all of them were wrong. He thought that the Black Star Corps had no way to rise up. Sigh, the Black Star Corps had suddenly become an ally of the Red Empire, and their faction leader, Black Star, had even become a beyond grade A super in the galaxy. He thought that only Bloodshed Land would win the Secret War. Sigh, but now, it was the Black Star Corps that had won. As for saying that the Black Star Corps had too many people and that the benefits they could share were limited, that was even more nonsense. The army players had made a lot of money, and the group of defectors that had joined Bloodshed Land were being hunted down by the army players to the point that they could barely take care of themselves. His prediction post had already been pinned to the Pillar of Shame, and many players were happily Summer Night Flower. Summer Night Flower simply pretended to be dead and did not have the confidence to say anything at all, afraid that he would be criticized by the players and become a deity on the spot. After scanning the post, Han Xiao returned to the pin post, opened the new issue of Galaxy Times, and looked at his feature. The opening was the same male and female hosts. They still had the same friendly smile that made one want to jump into the screen and hit them after looking at them for a long time. They were still speaking the same opening lines that even the audience could remember. Hello, players, the female host said. This is Galaxy Times, dedicated to sharing first-hand game information and protecting your gaming career. We only have one topic for today's episode, the male host said. That is the famous person who has caused a sensation in the galaxy recently, Black Star. The scene changed. It was unknown which player had taken a screenshot, but the background was the scene of the battle not long ago. The perspective of the screenshot was the position of the Black Star Corps, which was behind Han Xiao. In the picture, Han Xiao's back was facing the camera, and in front of him was an endless number of enemy battleships. It was as if he was facing thousands of troops alone. It was very cool to look at. Then, the show went through the life of Han Xiao's character from the beginning, introduced the rise of the Black Star Corps and the various major events that the players had participated in. During the Black Phantom era, He stirred up the situation of Blue Star behind the scenes, started the war single-handedly, and finally took revenge and destroyed the Germinal organization. During the Black Star mercenary era, he led the first batch of professional players to fight in the universe, joined Floating Dragon Island, grew rapidly, and laid the foundation of the future army. During the Mutation Disaster era, in order to fulfill his promise, he led the Black Star mercenary, who had already gained a foothold in the universe, back to Blue Star, helped the Mother Planet to resist the disaster, led the players into the galaxy, and the Black Star Corps was officially born. He assisted Ghidorah to get rid of the infamous Dark Star organization, becoming the rare example of an outsider in Ghidorah's history who received the Golden Gal badge. During the Secret War era, in the 10 years unknown to the players, he developed the Black Star Corps, became a Beyond Grade A, turned the tide of the war single-handedly, helped Purple Crystal win the war, and even allowed the army to join the Universal Civilization Red Empire. The program used a rather formal tone to recount the history of Han Xiao in the eyes of the players from the beginning, accompanied by some of the Black Star Corps storyline content recorded in the Galaxy Chronicles. It also screened the players' life experiences in the army, adding more interaction to the introduction, showing the nature of the growth of the players and the army together. At the end of the video, the program gave a concluding comment. In just over 20 years, Black Star walked out of his mother planet and established an astonishing foundation in the Shattered Star Ring. From the Black Star of the past to the Black Star that is now famous in the star field, we have witnessed his growth. He is the first person we have seen who reached beyond Grade A through his own growth. As a leader, he undoubtedly possesses the characteristics of a legend. His ambition, ability, and methods are extraordinary. Even though he has been active in our eyes until now, he has always been like a veil of mystery. We have never completely understood his philosophy and character. There are always many guesses about him, and there are always different opinions. No one knows how high the Black Star Corps will achieve under his leadership, but one thing is for sure. We are witnessing the birth of a legend. The video ended there, and this episode of the Galaxy Times gave a summary of his achievements. It could be considered a more official report. Han Xiao felt that the benefits were not small. He was an old friend in the eyes of the old players in version 1.0 and version 2.0, but the new players in the other star fields in version 3.0 still had limited understanding of him. This episode of the Galaxy Times was equivalent to introducing him to more new players, and he gained a wave of fame. Not bad. Seeing that he was on camera again, Han Xiaoxin was happy and opened Port Bun's video. Compared to the official style of the Galaxy Times, Port Bun's video had a strong tendency to bootlick. As soon as the video started, the screen was pitch black and the narration slowly sounded. Han Xiao suddenly raised his eyebrows. Port Bun's narration was actually from a first-person perspective, pretending to speak with his identity. The black screen brewed the atmosphere, covering the already low voice with a layer of mystery. When I first gazed at the starry sky, the stars in the sky were like diamonds in the night sky, bright and shining. But in the distant horizon, there were two overlapping stars. The former covered the latter's starlight, turning it into a pitch-black star. At that moment, I thought that maybe one day I could also cover the light of the other stars so that everyone can only see me. Chapter 778. Tisk. Han Xiao felt his scalp go numb. It had been a while since they last met, and this guy was still so good at sucking up. He even learned a new posture and sucked up to the point. Just by watching the beginning, Han Xiao could already guess what this episode would be about. As expected, Port Bun pretended to be his own monologue at the beginning to build up the atmosphere. Then, the scene changed and started to describe his deeds from the time when he was Black Phantom. Although the Galaxy Times feature was a similar character inventory, Port Bun's style was different. Most of the time, he used first-person narration and edited the material from many previous episodes together to create a strong sense of story. The first-person narration made the video feel very immersive. Port Bun narrated all kinds of deeds from Han Xiao's perspective, creating a sense of personal experience and making the audience feel as if they were there. One of the characteristics of the first-person narration was that it was through the tone of Black Star himself, expressing his inner thoughts and making the audience's impression of him clearer. Han Xiao had always maintained a sense of propriety in his interactions with the players. What he showed was all superficial behavior, so the players' understanding of him was always separated by a layer of membrane, and they could not know his inner thoughts. However, Port Bun wanted to use this episode to give a real personality to the image of Black Star in the players' hearts. The reason he did this was to further solidify his position as the ace video series of the Black Star Army. He wanted this episode to become a classic that the future generations could not avoid if they wanted to understand Black Star. Through reasoning, analysis, and imagination, coupled with a strong sense of immersion, he created a vivid image for the character he loved, making the character seem more real in the eyes of the players. To the players, this type of character theme was not unfamiliar. They liked to give more direct personality symbols to NPCs. After all, the NPCs could not see them, so they could talk about them however they wanted. Port Bun's analysis was based on Han Zhao's deeds over the years. From his perspective, he interpreted Black Star's reasons and motives, beautified his image, and dissected his personality. However, the players liked this very much. From the time of Black Star until now, the audience felt like they were experiencing Black Star's thoughts from the first-person perspective. Port Bun edited a few of Han Zhao's public speeches, and along the way, Port Bun gave him a lot of positive personality labels, such as ambitious, nostalgic for his home planet, loyal, trustworthy, decisive, bold, careful, and so on. What the F***CK? You're licking him too much. Bun Hit Dog praised him to the skies as if he was the epitome of 1,000 positive qualities. Even Han Xiao himself was embarrassed. Even if you want to bootlick, you still have to follow the basic rules. You're too ridiculous. Although it's quite comfortable, the image that Port Bun created was far from his actual self, but the benefits were obvious. Only the players themselves could use this method to create a clear image for him. With such a top paparazzi, it was beneficial to increase his personal charm to the players. There were obviously more comments on Port Bun's side than the Galaxy Times. A lot of people on the screen were praising the Army commander. At the end of the show, Port Bun emphasized the rise of the Black Star Corps in the future of the Starfield. At the same time, he threw out new guests. The Secret War is the main storyline in our eyes, but in my opinion, this might just be the background on the surface. What's hidden in the dark is the real main storyline of this storyline, and that is the rise of the Black Star Corps. The Secret War is actually the background of Black Star's advancement to beyond Grade A and the rise of the Army in the Starfield. This guess was approved by the majority of the Army players. They still remembered that in the previous version, the Black Star Corps was far from its current size. However, as soon as version 3.0 started, the Black Star Corps, which had gone through 10 years of war, was reborn and grasped the opportunity of the war to develop. Now that Black Star had ended the Secret War, the rise of the Black Star Corps was more like the real main storyline, overshadowing the Secret War and turning it into the background. After looking around, most of the Army players thought so. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. This was a chance to directly implement his plan of turning the Secret War history into a dungeon. The next day, the Army players received an unexpected gift. All the players who participated in the Secret War had the Army Assistant Program on their communicator informing them that they had received the honorary title Secret Combatant. This was a title that was displayed in the Army's personal resume, and it was the Army's recognition of them. This was a title that belonged to the faction and had nothing to do with the interface. However, the players with this title would always enjoy a 10% discount in the Army. The players who participated in the war were pleasantly surprised, not only because of the 10% discount, but also because of this honor. There is only one Secret War, and this title would only be released once. It was an out-of-print faction title, representing that they had witnessed the rise of the Army. This was an honor that proved that they were veterans. At the same time, the faction store released a large number of Secret War dungeon crystals, including mini battles, which ran through the 10-year process that the players had not experienced. Dungeons had always been one of the favorite products of the players, and they were all very interested in them. These Secret War dungeons were obviously a series, similar to Six Nations and Germinal Organization, suitable for their current level. The players thought that this was a characteristic of a growth faction. After completing a big main storyline, the Black Star Corps would be able to create a corresponding series of dungeons. They were already used to this. Other than farming dungeons for rewards, the Secret War series dungeons could help the players understand the development of the Black Star Corps in the 10 years after the version update. Entering the dungeon and experiencing it personally would be more detailed than the historical records. Han Shao had another reason for doing this. The Secret War main storyline had ended, and the players had entered the free exploration period. Throwing out a large number of dungeons at this time would give them something new to do to pass the time of this main storyline. When the Red Empire gave the order to develop the Flickering World, he would lead the Black Star Corps to explore the Flickering World. By then, he would have plenty of things to do. The Flickering World was the storyline of the next version. After the initial development of the Red Empire, the various star fields were allowed to participate in the exploration. To the players, it was like a world server, where they gathered to explore the unknown and compete for resources. He would bring the army players in early in version 3.0 to seize the opportunity. Currently, Han Shao could only wait and focus on expanding the army. He wanted to obtain enough benefits from the skyrocketing influence during this period. The evolution cube would remain a rare commodity for the time being, making the many civilizations in the Colton star cluster itchy. With the addition of a large number of new members, the personnel changes within the army became more frequent. These chores were handled by Philip and Sylvia, so he did not have to worry about them. Half a month had passed, and most of the new members who were willing to join were recruited. The expansion of the Black Star Corps was gradually taking shape. All the troops of the Bloodshed Land had also returned to the Soul Cluster through the Stargate. Your Excellency Tyrant, what should we do next? Hearing Jode's careful question, Heber turned around. After being humiliated the last time, he had been keeping a low profile during this period and silently watched the Black Star Corps expand. His reputation as the Tyrant had been used as a stepping stone by Han Shao, and his prestige had been greatly reduced. Such an outcome was far from what he had expected. However, Black Star had become an ally, and it was impossible for them to use him as a target to establish their prestige. The Red Empire had ordered them to reconcile. Heber was silent for a while before slowly saying, "Send an invitation to the various organizations in the Shattered Star Ring for me. Call for a new gathering." Then, Black Star, Jode's heart skipped a beat. Heber did not look at Jode's expression and turned around. Since he's the 5th beyond Grade A in the Shattered Star Ring, of course, he has the qualifications to be invited. Chapter 779. Heber invited me to his party. In the Black Star Corps headquarters, Han Shao stared at Malekith with interest. Yes, His Excellency Tyrant said so. Malekith's palms were sweating. It was only because of the Red Empire that they became allies on the surface. However, their relationship was very delicate, and 10 years of hostility could not be resolved so easily. Malekith coming to deliver the invitation felt like he was in the enemy's camp. Looking at Han Shao on the mechanical throne, Malekith had mixed feelings. He had once tried to recruit Han Shao, but 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye. He was still a Vanguard official under the Tyrant, but Black Star had become a beyond Grade A on the same level as the Tyrant. Han Shao tapped his fingers on the armrest of his seat and pondered with narrowed eyes. He had attended a Tyrant's party with Ames in the past. This was a party for the upper echelons of the Shattered Star Ring that Heber had created single-handedly. Recently, due to the loss of the battle, the Tyrant's reputation had taken a hit. Bloodshed Land and Clint had been silent for a period of time, and Heber was in a hurry to call a new party. He might have the intention of stabilizing his position. Since the Tyrant wanted to maintain the influence of the party, it was impossible for him not to invite a new beyond Grade A. Perhaps Heber was responding to the request of the Red Empire and wanted to reconcile with him. It could also be a trap, but the chances were not high. The Secret War had not ended for long, and many conflicts of interest were not clear. Perhaps this party was to clarify these matters. Han Xiao nodded. Go back and tell the tyrant that I will be there. Malekith heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly left. In front of Han Xiao, he was under a lot of pressure. Looking at the time, the date of the party was a month later. The secret war had just ended, and Clint was negotiating with Purple Crystal to remove the Stargate seal at the border of the star cluster so that the shortcut channels between the two star clusters could be reconnected. According to the information he obtained through his connections in the Amethyst civilization, due to the intervention of the Red Empire, the negotiations between the two star cluster civilizations went smoothly. The Stargate that connected the two star clusters would be officially opened in about 10 days. A month's time. At that time, the expansion of the Black Star Core should be almost complete. The first batch of elites sent by the Red Empire to be modified by the Evolution Cube should also arrive after that. We have plenty of time. During this period of time, apart from training the Heber Stellar Furnace and building the Mech Legion, Han Xiao did not have many things to do. Coincidentally, he had the time to attend the Tyrant's Gathering, which would help him discuss matters with the various factions. At this time, Harmon suddenly pushed open the door and walked in. Black Star, I'm leaving, Harmon said loudly. Oh, Han Xiao remembered. Right, you're going back to fight for the position of chief, right? Harmon was the main character of the Luhan Beastman tribe. The Luhan Beastman tribe was a galactic civilization, but they retained their warlike, barbaric, and warlike traditions. Their ruling method was a tribal alliance system, and every tribe controlled a few colonial planets. Such a system had a special origin. The Luhan Beastmen were not natives, but wanderers who had fled from other star systems many years ago. They were scattered on different planets in the same region and developed on their own, forming different tribes. Although they inherited the same origin and traditions, each tribe had a different culture after a long period of evolution. In the end, they united as one and retained their independence, thus forming such a system. The way to elect the chief of a tribe was to randomly throw all the candidates to different planets in the universe, allowing them to train themselves in the galaxy and form their own war league. When the time limit was up, every candidate would bring their own war league back to fight for the right to become the chief. The date of the election for the Rockfall tribe that Harmon was in was approaching. His career as a mercenary was about to end, and he was preparing to return to inherit the property of a galactic tribe. More than 10 years ago, in order to recruit Harmon, Han Xiao had also joined his war league, and the mission was still hanging on his interface. Black Star, you are my war league. You have to come and help me, Harmon said in a muffled voice. The Luhan Beastman civilization is located in the Sol Cluster. Han Xiao stroked his chin. It's on the way to the Tyrant's party. All right, I'll bring some people with you. This was an ancient tradition of the Luhan Beastman tribe. He had already agreed, and Han Xiao was not going to go back on his words. After Harmon left, Han Xiao took out his communicator and sent a message to the Dragon Emperor. Ames, the Tyrant is preparing to hold a party. Have you received the invitation? Come to my place, we'll go together. Very quickly, Ames replied. Okay. A few days later, Ames took a spaceship to the Black Star Core headquarters. The two of them were now allies and were old acquaintances. There was no need for formalities when they met, and it was as easy as paying a visit. This time, Han Xiao only brought his Black Star Guards and left the headquarters in a spaceship. Moving together was Harmon and his War League, as well as a portion of the players who had accepted the mission from the War League. All of them headed toward the Sol Cluster where the Bloodshed Land was located. There were 2 beyond grade, as in a large number of high-level Calamity grades in the spaceship. The lineup was extremely luxurious. Arriving at the border of the Star Cluster, the Stargate that had been closed for 10 years due to the Secret War reopened. Countless spaceships formed a long line and entered the Stargate one after another, crossing the desolate universe belt. During the war, most of the civilians of the 2 star clusters were unable to travel to the other's territory, and transportation was restricted. After entering the Sol Cluster, Han Xiao changed his direction and headed straight for the Luhan Beastman civilization's territory. At the same time, on the Luhan Blood Planet, This was a gray, desolate planet that had a special position in the Luhan Beastman tradition. Every tribe would use this planet as a battle arena for the election of the chief. There were many dilapidated colosseums made of stone on the Luhan blood planet. Every time there was a tribal election, a new colosseum would be built, leaving behind many wreckages and ruins over the years. In a certain area of the planet, there were many crude-looking Luhan Beastman spaceships on the surface surrounding a newly built colosseum. This would be the battlefield where the chief candidates of the Rockfall tribe would fight for the right of succession. The current chief of the Rockfall tribe, Halita, was a burly Luhan Beastman. In the aesthetic sense of the Luhan Beastman, the amount of hair on one's body was an important indicator of one's age. Halita's hair was sparse, and his body was covered in old scars. He was Harmon's father, and Harmon was the rightful second-generation chief. Mogo, Ghetto, Thale of the 25 chief candidates, only 6 have returned. The rest should have died in the universe. Halita looked at the candidates with their respective leagues, not far away, and shook his head. Most of these candidates were the descendants of the tribe's upper echelons. The Luhan Beastmen were a martial race, and they believed that only the strong were qualified to lead the tribe. When all the candidates were expelled from their home planet, they could not accept any form of help from the tribe except for the league partners they brought with them. This was to test the candidates' comprehensive survival ability. Only those who could survive and return to the Luhan Beastman's territory were qualified to compete for the chief position. This was a kind of screening in itself. The candidates could not contact anyone in the tribe, or they would be disqualified. The candidates' relatives could not contact them at will either, or they would be ridiculed. The candidates could only passively accept the tribe's notice. Therefore, Halita was not sure about Harmon's current situation. He only knew that he had joined the Black Star Corps and was still alive. I don't know if his league is strong enough. Halita was secretly worried. In the battle for the chief position, one was responsible for their own life and death. In the culture of the Luhan Beastmen, there was no tradition of showing mercy to the enemy. The 6 candidates who returned had been in business for more than 10 years, and all had strong leagues. Among them, Mogo and Ghetto were the strongest. Mogo had joined the Bloodshed Land and brought back tens of thousands of warriors who were on good terms with him. There were many grade B supers among them, and Ghetto seemed to have become an important partner of some financial group. Behind him stood a large group of Black Star troopers dressed as mercenaries. The two of them stared at each other from afar, treating each other as their biggest competitors. Don't worry, Mogo. We are all elite warriors of the Bloodshed Land. The enemy is just a group of random mercenaries that we have never heard of. They have fewer people than us and are no match for us. A Bloodshed Land officer patted Mogo's shoulder. They had fought side by side for many years and had a deep friendship. Mogo grinned, waved his warhammer twice, and said in a deep voice, "Among all the candidates, only Harmon can beat me. Unfortunately, he hasn't returned yet. Maybe he died in the universe. Other than him, no one else can beat me. For someone like Ghetto, I can kill him in 2 or 3 strikes." On the other side, Ghetto was quietly whispering to a man dressed as a mercenary beside him. "Boss, I'll be counting on you later. Ha, with me around, you'll definitely be able to become the chief." This person sneered. His name was Riel, and his real identity was actually the leader of a certain rogue organization in the Soul Cluster. Ghetto had joined this rogue organization, and there was a rule in the election for the chief position. If the candidate took the wrong path, they would be disqualified. After all, the chief of a tribe could not be a wanted criminal in the universe. However, Ghetto was unwilling to give up the position of chief and found a way to disguise himself as a rogue. He was relying on Riel, who was the only grade A super among all the candidates. Riel agreed to help Ghetto become the chief, and in exchange, he asked Ghetto to provide them with resources and logistics in the future. Although the Rockfall tribe was only one of the tribes in the Luhan Beastman civilization, they had a few planets in their hands and were quite wealthy. Time passed as they waited, and the other Luhan Beastman tribe chiefs took their seats with their subordinates, coming to witness the election of the Rockfall tribe's chief. Seeing that it was about time, Felita spoke loudly. It's about time. Mogo, Ghetto, all the candidates, bring your leagues into the battlefield. Choose an area yourselves and prepare for battle. Everyone entered the battlefield in a single file, stood in their positions, and faced each other. Felita looked at the time repeatedly and was a little anxious. The candidates who returned after the battle officially started would be considered late and would be disqualified directly, and Harmon had not arrived yet. At this time, Riel stepped out under Ghetto's signal and released his grade energy wave, his aura soaring into the sky. Calamity grade? The expressions of the other candidates changed drastically. Felita was also shocked. As a star system civilization, the Luhan Beastman civilization also had more than 10 Calamity grade supers, and there were 3 on the stands. Yet, Ghetto could actually turn a Calamity grade supers into his own league. His strength immediately overwhelmed all the other candidates. At this time, 2 candidates on the battlefield suddenly threw away their weapons and raised their hands. This action meant that they were surrendering. Before the battle even started, these 2 people had already given up the right to fight for the chief position. Although this was embarrassing, at least they would not have to fight a Calamity grade supers and would be able to keep their lives. Furthermore, they would not have to send their brothers to their deaths. There was a commotion in the stands. Are we really going to fight a Calamity grade supers? Seeing this, the Bloodshed Land officer immediately retreated, throwing his bold words out of the window. Fight! Mogo's expression changed several times. He clenched his teeth and gripped the warhammer in his hand tightly. Can I give up now? A Bloodshed Land warrior behind suddenly threw away his weapon and slowly backed away. They were willing to become Mogo's league and fight for him, but they were not willing to die because of this. Mogo's expression turned ugly. On the other side, Ghetto had a smug look on his face as he looked down on the entire battlefield. Standing beside Riel, he felt like a fox exploiting the tiger's might. In the stands, Felita had a conflicted expression. At this time, Ghetto's father spoke. Chief, don't purposely delay. Let's start quickly. Ghetto's father was also an upper echelon of the tribe. He usually kept a low profile, but at this time, he could not wait any longer. It's also good that Harmon is not coming back. Felita sighed and was about to speak when a spaceship descended from the sky, attracting the attention of everyone present. The spaceship landed in a corner of the battlefield. The hatch opened, and Harmon walked out with a group of his league comrades. Harmon is back. Many members of the Rockfall tribe were shocked. Harmon had a lot of prestige in the tribe, and his bravery had been recognized by the members of the tribe. A hint of panic flashed through Ghetto's eyes. He had been beaten up by Harmon since he was young, and it had left a deep shadow in his heart. However, he immediately thought of Riel beside him and regained his confidence. He gritted his teeth and glared at Harmon. It's useless even if you're back. If you dare to compete with me today, you're dead meat. Hearing the cheers from the stands, Riel knew that Harmon was a strong competitor. He snorted coldly and gathered all the energy in his body, raising his Calamity grade aura to the maximum. He released the pressure of a life rating and fiercely pressed down on Harmon's group. He wanted to use the same method to intimidate this group and make them retreat. Right this time, a voice sounded. Yo, little bro, you're a little arrogant. A few people suddenly walked out from behind Harmon. Han Shao walked at the front and looked at Riel with a funny expression. It was as though he was looking at a peacock spreading its tail. The Black Star Guards, which had expanded to 9 people, followed behind him. Hela raised her brows and took a step forward. She released her aura and swept across the entire field, pushing back Riel's aura. The other party also had a Calamity grade. Riel's chest tightened, and he was shocked. He rubbed his eyes and clearly saw the appearance of Han Zhao's group. He was stunned for a second before suddenly turning pale with fright. He was so frightened that he took a few steps back and bumped into Ghetto. Black Star? Black Star? He lost his composure and cried out. Everyone's eyes focused on Han Zhao's group, and their expressions changed. The stands were in an uproar. Everyone was stunned, and their faces were filled with disbelief. This is Black Star? Beyond grade A? Harmon actually managed to invite a beyond grade A super over? Felita was dumbfounded. Ding ding dang dang. At this moment, all the candidates threw away the weapons in their hands. Even Ghetto obediently gave up, feeling extremely sullen. He had originally thought that with a Calamity Grade Super as his backing, he would definitely be able to obtain the position of Tribal Chief. Who would have thought that Harmon would suddenly appear and bring a Beyond Grade A over? Who would be able to withstand this? Emogu softly said, "If only His Excellency Tyrant could come and help me." "Are you dreaming?" The Bloodshed Land officer stared at him as though he was looking an idiot. "What kind of status does the tyrant have? Would he even bother with you?" Emogu pointed at Han Shao, and the Bloodshed Land officer was speechless. Seeing this, the spectators of the various tribes became restless. This was the only time in the history of the Luhan Beastmen that all the candidates for Tribal Chief had given up. It was also the first time that a Beyond Grade A had become the Tribal Chief's War Alliance. Harmon had a baffled look on his face as he scratched his head with his battle axe. Confused, he asked, "Why aren't they fighting anymore?" "That's it." Hearing this, the others gritted their teeth and only wanted to kick him to death. Even Beyond Grade A was here. With such a huge difference in strength, what was there to fight? "Are you trying to send us to our deaths?" "That's it." The mission completion notification popped up on the interface, and the players who had followed over were taken aback. They did not do anything but watch the cutscene for a while, and the mission was completed. "We thought that there would be a tough battle." Seeing everyone staring at him, Han Shao helplessly shook his head. With his current position, many low-level missions could be completed by just showing his face. Helping Harmon obtain the position of Tribal Chief was really something that happened along the way. Chapter 780. Boom! Two huge wooden wine cups collided, and amber-colored wine spilled out along the sides of the cups. Harmon raised his head and gulped it down in 2 or 3 mouthfuls before exhaling in satisfaction. Han Shao shook his head with a smile and drank a mouthful as well. The spicy wine flowed down his throat, and the moment the alcohol entered his body, it was immediately broken down. To him, it was no different from water. At this moment, everyone was on the Rockfall tribe's ship, and Harmon had invited Han Shao and the others to his hometown as guests. Normally, fighting for the position of Tribal Chief was unavoidable, but Han Zhao's appearance had caused the other candidates to give up in despair. The position of Tribal Chief fell into Harmon's hands without any suspense. Harmon was overjoyed and held a banquet on the ship. Since they were all old friends, Han Shao naturally would not refuse. "Congratulations, you are the next Rockfall tribe chief." The other tribal chiefs of the Luhan Beastman civilization all came up to congratulate Harmon while sizing up Han Shao with envy. They did not know why Harmon would have such a good relationship with a Beyond Grade A Super. The War Alliance of the tribal chiefs was also a symbol of his connections. With a Beyond Grade A Super as a friend, the various tribal chiefs knew that after Harmon inherited the position, the Rockfall tribe would most likely rise up and possess even greater authority. Looking at Harmon, who was receiving the congratulations of his tribesmen, Han Shao pondered. In his previous life, this storyline mission had been simple and crude. From the beginning to the end, Harmon had obtained the position of tribal chief through battle. Now that he had intervened, there was no battle, and he felt that there might not be a dungeon crystal. However, this did not matter to Han Shao. He did not care about the mission reward. The reason he had come to help was because he had been friends with Harmon for more than 10 years. Harmon had joined him when he was still a Black Star mercenary, and Han Shao was not stingy with helping an old friend like him. It was the same for Haluz back then as well. At the banquet table nearby, Hardaway was stuffing a large piece of charred meat into his mouth while glancing at Harmon. Moving his butt, he moved to Hella's side and whispered, "Black Star seems to have a pretty good relationship with that beast man. Has he always been so concerned about his subordinates?" Hella was frowning and staring at the sediment at the bottom of the cup that seemed to be some kind of beast's eyeball. Hearing this, she glanced at Hardaway expressionlessly. Her indifferent eyes seemed to say, "Stay away from me." Hardaway was snubbed, so he moved his butt to Fu Ding's side and whispered, "Brother Fu Ding, has Blackstar always treated me this well?" Fu Ding rolled his eyes. "Go away, I'm Qinxing." Not far away, a group of players had gathered and were whispering to each other as they scanned the many famous Black Star guards. "I heard that Black Star is going to the Bloodshed Lands headquarters this time. Could he be there to cause trouble? I'm not sure, but Black Star and the Tyrant are going to meet again. There will definitely be a good show to watch." After Harmon's War League mission was completed, Han Xiao had issued a new mission to this group of players through the faction interface, telling them to follow him. Although he did not intend to bring the players to the Tyrant's party, it was not appropriate to leave them in the Soul Cluster halfway. It would not be good if they lost this bunch of leaks. Thus, he gave them a mission with generous rewards so that they would not run around randomly. Pork Bun was not among this group of people, but there were some who posted on the forums, announcing his whereabouts. Now, all the players knew that he had gone to the Bloodshed Lands headquarters with Ames. Some even said that they were on their honeymoon and were specifically looking for the Tyrant to fight. This was very beyond grade A super. Ever since Han Xiao and Ames formed an alliance, there was a trend of couples forming on the forums, believing that there was definitely something fishy going on between the two beyond grade As. There were even some who wrote a series of pornographic novels about how Black Star had turned the tables and subdued a strong woman. It was quite popular. "Your Excellency, Black Star." Just as he was drinking, someone suddenly called out to him. Han Xiao looked over and saw that it was Felita who had come to his side. He had a look of hesitation on his face. "What's the matter?" Han Xiao smiled. After all, this was Harmon's father, so his attitude was much more amiable. Felita coughed and said, "Can we talk in private?" Han Xiaoxi nodded, put down his wine glass, and walked out of the banquet hall with Felita arriving in an empty corridor on the spaceship. "If you have something to say, just say it." "Your Excellency Black Star, may I ask, what's the relationship between you and Harmon?" Felita asked carefully. "He joined me more than 10 years ago and helped me a lot. When my mother planet was facing a disaster, he contributed a lot. When I wasn't even a calamity grade, I already agreed to join his war alliance, so you can rest assured that I have no other intentions toward your Luhan Beastmen." Han Xiao smiled. He was clear about Felita's concerns. After all, a beyond grade A super, especially helping someone fight for the position of leader of a branch of a star system civilization, seemed to have ulterior motives. Felita looked hesitant. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and asked, "Your Excellency Black Star, I have a request. I wonder if the Black Star Corps is willing to accept race migration business?" Han Xiao blinked and signaled for him to continue. The origin of our Luhan Beastmen was originally a wandering civilization. Although we have formed a star system civilization, every tribe is actually an independent nation. In the direction of the development of our civilization, we have a lot of differences. I hope that the Rockfall tribe can migrate and leave the Soul Cluster. Why? Han Xiao was curious. The Soul Cluster is the territory of the Clint Kingdom, and their desire for control is very strong. There are several star system civilizations in this star system, and our Luhan Beastman civilization is just one of them. The other civilizations more or less have Clint's background, so they work together to squeeze us out and squeeze our resources. Their goal is to force us to become Clint's vassal. 100 years ago, we had a total of 3 star zones, but now we only have 1.5. The Luhan Beastmen are brave and good at fighting, and the proportion of supers in our tribe is very high. Clint has always had intentions toward us. Our Rockfall tribe is an independent faction. We want to maintain our independence and are not willing to become Clint's vassal. However, most tribes want to compromise with Clint, and we have no choice but to find another way out. Hearing this, Han Xiao stroked his chin and pondered. This kind of thing was not uncommon in the universe. When a civilization had multiple regimes, such differences would often occur when it involved the future of the entire race. This kind of regime was actually not suitable for a star system civilization. In the galaxy, where there were many organizations, the decisions made by a civilization had to be responsible for the entire race. However, a branch regime had its own interests, so it was very easy to have conflicts. Unfortunately, due to the history of the Luhan beastmen, they were forced to form such a system. Even if they recognized the problem, it was very difficult to change it. No tribe was willing to give up their power. The Luhan beastmen civilization was a relatively weak star system civilization. Every tribe controlled a few colonial planets, and there were only about 100 planets in total. They were scattered in different places. A star system usually had more than 10 star zones. For example, a powerful star system civilization like Godura could dominate a star system and rule all the star zones. However, some star systems had multiple star system civilizations, each occupying some star zones and fighting for resources. Such star system civilizations were naturally weaker compared to other civilizations of the same level. Han Xiao nodded. You want the Rockfall tribe to become independent, leave the joint civilization, and develop on their own in another star cluster as a branch of the Luhan beastmen? That's right, Haletta quickly agreed. Do you know the consequences? If you do that, a large portion of the tribe members will choose to stay and not migrate with you. Han Xiao raised his brows. I'll take care of this. There are many other tribes who are unhappy with Clint, Haletta said with a deep voice. Hearing this, Han Xiao did not ask anymore and slowly said, Okay, you can contact me anytime once you've made up your mind. Other people's tribes were responsible for them. He was only responsible for receiving money. With the current ability of the Black Star Corps, it was not difficult to take care of the migration of a tribe. In the universe, it was not uncommon for a branch of a civilization to seek to develop independently, so he was not surprised by this. Haletta nodded. The migration process was very dangerous, and they needed military protection. He was originally hesitant, but after seeing the relationship between Harmon and Black Star, he felt that the Black Star Corps might be able to realize this idea. The migration matter still had to be discussed with the next chief, Harmon. However, with Harmon's personality and experience, he would most likely reject becoming a vassal of Clint like him. The group took a spaceship to the planet of the Rockfall tribe and stayed as guests for 3 days. Han Xiao then said goodbye to Harmon and continued to head toward Bloodshed Land with the others. Harmon had returned to be the chief, but if the Rockfall tribe really wanted to migrate, there would still be opportunities to interact with them in the future. 10 days later, a thin line of blue light streaked across the pitch-black space, jumping at high speed. The blue stream of light only stopped when Planet Heber appeared in their vision, revealing the appearance of a spaceship and slowly flying toward Planet Heber. At this moment, there were already a large number of spaceships taking off and landing on Planet Heber. The last time I was here was more than 10 years ago, right? Looking at Planet Heber and the familiar base group, Han Xiao turned to look at Ames, who was standing beside him. I came here with you. You were much cuter back then. Ames smiled. Time really flies. Han Xiao sighed and let Philip control the spaceship to land. This was the second time he had stepped into the headquarters of Bloodshed Land. More than 10 years ago, he had been Ames' follower, but today he was the big boss of the Shattered Star Ring who had received an official invitation. The spaceship had already reported its identity and entered the port according to the instructions. After the battleship stopped, Hela and the other Black Star guards led the way and walked out of the spaceship first. Han Xiao and Ames then stepped onto the dock. Both of them were dressed in black. Han Xiao was used to wearing a black cloak, and a few mechanical hovering guards were moving around him mischievously. Ames, on the other hand, was wearing a black dress with a high slit. The dress dragged on the ground like a blooming black flower, complementing her long and slender legs. Your Excellency Black Star, Your Excellency Dragon Emperor. Vanguard official Captain Rothers was waiting at the dock and greeted the two of them stiffly. Yo, isn't this my old rival? Han Xiao chuckled. I still remember you clamoring to kill me during the war. Why aren't you so arrogant now? Rothers gritted his teeth and glared at Han Xiao, but he did not dare to reply. The tyrant had invited Black Star and the others this time with the intention of reconciling. These Bloodshed Land officers were actually unhappy. However, this was Heber's order, and they could not disobey. They could only swallow their anger. "Please, follow me." Rothers squeezed these words out of his gritted teeth. He turned around and led the way, determined not to reply to Han Xiao. Seeing this, Han Xiao could not be bothered to tease him. He walked side by side with Ames and followed Rothers to the guest castle. He had attended the tyrant's party the last time and was clear about the process. He would probably stay in the guest castle for a few days to communicate with the representatives of the other organizations and expand his network while waiting for all the guests to arrive. The players behind them were curious and looked around. This was the first time they had come to the Bloodshed Land headquarters, and they were curious about the intentions of Han Xiao and the others. The tyrant's party was an event for the upper echelons, and the players did not know about it at all. They arrived at the guest castle without any trouble. There were already many representatives of the various organizations inside. When they saw Han Xiao and Ames, they could not help but be shocked. The atmosphere was strange. Many of them had eager expressions, as if they wanted to rush up and show off their butts. Han Xiao, who had the evolution cube, was now a hot commodity in the eyes of the various organizations. Everyone wanted to get close to him. Han Xiao did not walk in immediately and asked, "Does the tyrant not plan to see us now?" "I don't know. Don't ask me." Rother's face was green. He turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly stopped. He looked at Hardaway, who was spacing out, and said in an unfriendly tone, "You're a member of the Black Star Corps now?" Hardaway came back to his senses and nodded. "Yes, I'm a Black Star Guard now. The treatment is not bad. Do you want to join?" When Foster's heard this, he felt like he was being mocked and was furious. Hardaway had once cooperated with the Bloodshed Land, but because Jode made use of him, the cooperation ended. He then joined Han Xiao like a father. However, in Rother's eyes, this kind of behavior was like abandoning the dark for the light. He was already angry, and he wanted to vent it out. With a cold expression, he shouted, "As the vanguard official of the Bloodshed Land, I challenge the Black Star Corps Black Star Guards. Who dares to fight with me?" Hearing this, Han Xiao and Ames' eyes suddenly became strange. They looked at each other and saw that they had a tacit understanding from each other's eyes. Han Xiao, have we seen this before? Ames, isn't this the scene when you challenged that traitor Carol? Han Xiao smiled helplessly. In the past, he had taught the traitors of Floating Dragon a lesson for Ames, but now it was the officers of Bloodshed Land who were indignant and wanted to challenge his Black Star Guards to take him down a notch. Rothers loyally supported the tyrant. Although it would not be as exaggerated as the tyrant being humiliated, Heber had failed, and Rothers wanted to get back at him. Thus, he targeted Han Xiao's officers. Although Han Xiao was an invited guest, their relationship was so delicate that he was not willing to please an enemy who had killed hundreds of high-level combatants of the Bloodshed Land. Even a beyond grade, it would not be able to cover up a challenge. Furthermore, more than 10 years ago, the Bloodshed Land did not stop Han Xiao from challenging Carol. His voice was like thunder, instantly attracting the interest of the representatives of the various organizations in the hall. Helen narrowed her eyes, took a step forward, and said, "Cut the crap. Where do we fight? Who are you?" "The captain of the Black Star Guards under Black Star, Ella." Killing intent flashed past Rother's eyes. Just as he was about to speak, a shadow suddenly covered his head, and a deep voice came from behind him. "Come back." Everyone looked up, and their expressions changed. The one who had come was the tyrant, Heber. Hearing that Heber had stopped his challenge, Rother's expression turned ugly. He turned around and left, quickly disappearing from their sight. Seeing this, Hela also retracted her aura and took a few steps back. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked up at Heber, who was like a small mountain. Heber also lowered his head and looked at him, expressionless. The atmosphere in the hall seemed to have become heavy. Other than Ames, everyone in the hall had difficulty breathing. The atmosphere became more and more tense. At this time, Heber suddenly spoke, breaking the tense atmosphere. "Black Star, Dragon Emperor, come with me. The 5 of us beyond grade as have a good chat." Then, he turned around and walked into his palace. "It seems like we have to come to a conclusion on how the two parties should interact in the future." Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he did not hesitate. He instructed Hela and the others to rest in the guest room while he followed Heber into the palace. All 5 of us are here. Aim smiled faintly and followed into the palace. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 781. The 2 of them walked into Heber's palace and came to a huge circular hall. There were 5 floating thrones, and Heber sat on one of them. 2 of the other 4 thrones were already occupied. They were Cisco and Austin. Hee. As expected, we meet again very soon. Austin greeted with a smile. Old man. Han Zhao cursed in his mind and looked at Cisco on the other side. Cisco almost never attended the tyrant's party. Now that he was invited, he was quite surprised. Maybe it's because the evolution cube is gone and he doesn't have to stay at home. So Cisco is not staying at home? Han Xiaoxin thought. Black Star. Cisco nodded with a calm expression. No emotions could be seen in his 7 eyes, as though Han Xiao was not the enemy who had stolen his treasure. Han Xiao could not figure out Cisco's intentions, so he did not say anything and only nodded in response. Although they had conflicts of interest and grudges, they were all beyond grade as of the Shattered Star Ring. In such an occasion, they would not fight as soon as they saw each other. Ames floated up and sat on the empty seat. The 4 of them all looked at Han Xiao, waiting for him. Han Xiao smiled, flew up, and landed on the last empty seat, which was also the 5th new throne. At this moment, he had officially entered this small circle. The 5 of them sat facing each other. This was the new structure of the peak combatants of the Shattered Star Ring. Since everyone is here, let's have a good talk. Heber spoke with a deep voice and turned to look at Han Xiao. First, the problem between you and me. There are only 2 choices in front of us. One is to continue opposing each other, and the other is to temporarily reconcile. I'm listening. Han Xiao did not comment. Since you have also joined the Red Empire, we have no choice but to become allies. We must stand on the same side. This is what the Empire wants, and it is also what I want. Heber slowly said, during the 10 years of the Secret War, you killed many of my subordinates, and many of your soldiers also died at my hands. The grudge between us runs deep, and you definitely won't be willing to back down. Neither will I. Why don't we put aside our dispute for now and settle our past grudges later? You mean, after we complete the exploration of the flickering world, we will slowly settle this debt? Han Xiao raised his brows. Both sides had deep hatred for each other. Too many of their comrades had died in each other's hands in the past 10 years. It wasn't something that could be reconciled just like that. No matter which side it was, this was no longer just a matter of the leader's will. If they forced an alliance, the subordinates of both sides would find it difficult to accept, which would be detrimental to the cohesion of the faction. Heber nodded before shaking his head. We don't need to work together. The flickering world is huge, so we can stop fighting and live in peace. We can explore our own areas and not interfere with each other. This way, we can fulfill the Red Empire's request without forcing each other. Han Xiao stroked his chin. This suggestion was rather reasonable. To the Red Empire, as long as the 2 sides did not drag each other down, they would be able to accept it. Even the dynasty could not force a beyond grade, but to let go of old grudges and make peace with the enemy. He rolled his eyes and roughly understood what the tyrant meant. Exploring the flickering world was very important to the Red Empire, and as a new star field that had yet to be fully explored, there were too many areas in the flickering world that could be explored. The exploration results of their allies would not only be the foundation of their own organization's future development, but the Red Empire would also give out additional rewards for their exploration results. In other words, although both sides were allies, they were actually competitors. What they were competing on was the exploration ability of the 2 organizations in the flickering world. No, the Bloodshed Land is not the only competitor. The Red Empire will gather its allies from the various star fields to explore together. By then, there will be more organizations competing for resources. Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. Instead of being shocked, he was overjoyed. This was because he had too much of an advantage in this area. To all explorers, the flickering world was an unfamiliar and unexplored area that required luck to explore. However, in his eyes, the map of the flickering world was almost crystal clear. He knew the resources contained in each area like the back of his hand. The other competitors would not be able to compete with him. Han Xiao nodded. All right, I agree to this plan. We'll settle our grudges in the future. Let's stop fighting for now and mind our own business. When exploring the flickering world, we'll rely on our own abilities. Let's not drag each other down. The flickering world was the greatest benefit. At this juncture, there was no need to drag each other down. The tyrant thought the same, and the other party's suggestion was exactly what he wanted. After the Red Empire completed the initial exploration, occupied a large amount of resources, and stabilized their rule over the star field, they opened the flickering world to the entire galaxy. At that time, it was the turn of the various non-allies to move into the new star field. During the turmoil, there would be a reshuffle of organizations, and they would compete for territory and resources, forming the organization structure of the flickering world. The players of the entire galaxy would only enter the flickering world on a large scale during this period. In his previous life, version 3.0 to version 4.0 was the initial exploration phase of the Red Empire. Now, due to his actions, most of the players in the Shattered Star Ring could come into contact with the flickering world in advance. This was a huge advantage. The flickering world was the world server in the eyes of the players. Many guilds occupied barren planets and built their own guild strongholds. In that version, guild wars were very frequent, and the players were more active. The players of the Shattered Star Ring had more time to build their strongholds. However, to the current players, they did not know that the flickering world would become a world server in the future. Okay, Heber slowly replied. As Han Xiao had become an ally of the dynasty, he also gave up on the idea of using Han Xiao to establish his authority. Knowing that it was impossible, he changed his attitude toward Han Xiao and treated him as an equal. After finalizing the ceasefire agreement, Han Xiao nodded in his mind. The main goal of attending the tyrant's party this time could be considered achieved. Although it was impossible to truly reconcile, it was enough for now. This time, Cisco slowly opened his mouth. Now it's our turn to talk. Han Xiao looked over, stared at Cisco, and slowly said, The evolution cube is in my hands. If you don't plan to give it up, are you going to continue being my enemy? The Red Empire wants the evolution cube and is willing to support you. I know that you won't return it to me, so the only way is to snatch it back from you. Cisco did not hide his intentions for the evolution cube and calmly said, However, can the Red Empire protect you all the time? Even if they can they protect your Black Star Core? Don't stare at me like that. I'm not threatening you, but telling you the truth. Even if I'm willing to give it up, the Arcane Church won't, and even the Radiant Federation will take action. Han Xiao raised his brows. You don't have to be an alarmist. The evolution cube is a relic of a quasi-universal civilization during the exploration era. It's indeed a good thing, but you've kept it for so long, and it hasn't been snatched away. My situation is different from yours. Cisco glanced at Heber and suddenly said, You'd better be careful of the Red Empire's allies. Han Xiao frowned. The organizations going to develop the flickering world are all the Red Empire's allies in the various star fields. The Red Empire can help you resist external pressure, but internal hostility. Cisco narrowed his eyes. The Red Empire cares about the evolution cube itself, but the owner is not necessarily important. The evolution cube is extremely important to an organization, and someone might take the risk and attack you. As long as you die, what do you think the Red Empire will do? I understand what you're trying to say. Save the nonsense. Han Xiao shook his head. What Cisco meant was that the Red Empire's allies were not of one mind. Perhaps they were beyond grade, as from other star fields who were interested in the evolution cube and would find a chance to kill him and steal the treasure. As long as they acted first and reported later, the Red Empire would not stand up for a dead person, but would accept such actions to prevent losses. However, Han Shao had been in the Red Empire for many years and was quite clear about the Empire's character. The probability of such a situation happening was very low. The Radiant Federation might be able to do such a thing, but the Red Empire would not. The dynasty would only use this as an excuse to take the evolution cube directly into their hands. Even if it was a beyond grade A ally, as long as they broke the important rules, they would still be punished. From the Crimson Tide incident, it could be seen that the dynasty was very domineering. Hearing this, Cisco did not have any expression. He did not intend to scare Han Shao today and was just casually chatting. Don't forget, ES God is also after the evolution cube. If he finds you, you'd better pray that you run fast enough. ES God. Han Shao thought of ES God's number in his blacklist and had a strange expression. I'll worry about the evolution cube myself. There's no need to trouble you. Han Shao sized up Cisco. I'm curious, though. What are you doing here today? Are you here just to scare me? Who said I'm here for you? Cisco shook his head. He had not attended the Tyrant's party for a long time, and it was really not for Han Shao. In the past, he had to guard the evolution cube at home, so he rarely left the territory of the Star Pupil Protoss. Furthermore, with the evolution cube in his hands, he had endless support from the Arcane Church. He had a transcendent status and did not need to attend such high-level gatherings. However, now that the evolution cube was taken away, it was as if he had taken off a layer of shackles and was ready to be active in the starfield. This was not only because he wanted to be active, but also because without the evolution cube, the importance of the Arcane Church would definitely decrease. He planned to come out and walk around, attend the Tyrant's party, and build up his connections to develop into a star cluster civilization. Then, Cisco closed his eyes, not wanting to talk to Han Shao anymore. Then, Han Shao turned to look at Austin. Seeing that the disheveled old man was staring at him with bright eyes, he said in annoyance, "Do you have something to say to me, too?" Austin stretched out his slender finger and pointed at the evolution cube hanging around Han Zhao's neck. He chuckled and said, "Let's make a deal. Let me use it once, and I'll agree to one of your requests." Hee hee. Han Shao did not smile at all. Previously, when he was in trouble, this guy did not help him. After the storm was over, this guy jumped out to make a deal, thinking that with his character, there would be plenty of opportunities to exchange for the right to use the evolution cube in the future. You old man, your predictions are really F***king accurate. Han Shao had a helpless expression. He had used the evolution cube to get close to a neutral beyond grade A, and it was worth it no matter how he looked at it. There was no reason for him to reject any request. Han Shao snorted, pointed at Cisco, and said, "Then join hands with us and beat this guy to death." Cisco was not moved and continued to rest with his eyes closed. "Stop fooling around. You know I won't agree to this request." Austin shook his head with a bitter smile. His tone was bewitching, like a goldfish try to trick a little girl. "Let's change it to something else. How about you take my palace of hidden spells to play with? I can lend it to you for a few months." "Lend it to me? You should give it to me." "Hey, we're acquaintances. Don't be too greedy. This won't do, that won't do. Then, what can you help me with?" Austin thought about it and shrugged. "I don't know, but you definitely won't lose out." Veins popped up on Han Zhao's forehead. "Nonsense. There's no cost to letting you use the evolution cube once. Of course, I won't lose out, but you will." An idea suddenly popped up in his head. "How about you help me deal with ES God? Let's talk about killing Cisco instead." Cisco's eyelids could not help but twitch. The two of them talked for a long time, and even Ames started to yawn. Only then did Han Shao and Austin reach an agreement. A beyond grade, a mage would often be able to obtain some extremely rare materials when traveling through multiple dimensions. Austin would provide him with some genetic items from high-level void creatures every year for free. Secondly, the hidden Red Robe Abbey and the Black Star Corps were semi-allies. Every year, the hidden Red Robe Abbey would send high-level mages to the army to train some mages and teach them some rare spells. Lastly, Austin would have to do something within his capabilities that did not go against his principles, and the final interpretation of the principles would be Austin's. Han Shao could not do anything to him. The two of them had a good relationship, and Austin had even helped him a few times. Naturally, he was not willing to become enemies with Austin because of the evolution cube. Right? Han Xiao suddenly thought of something and threw an observer's mark at Austin. What are you doing? Austin was baffled and casually crushed the observer's mark. As a beyond grade A mage, it was easy for him to decipher the usage of void energy. Even if Han Xiao was a beyond grade A, it would be the same. After all, he was a mage who specialized in controlling multidimensional energy. Han Xiao did not give up and threw another observer's mark. Austin stared and crushed it again. The two of them stared at each other and repeated this process more than 10 times. In the end, Austin gave up resisting and let the observer's mark remain on his head. Only then did Han Xiao nod his head in satisfaction, feeling much happier. I'm going to put a big eye on your head in front of you today. Heber suddenly felt a headache coming on and regretted putting the two of them together. The atmosphere was originally so tense. Why was it suddenly not so serious? Seeing that Han Xiao and Austin had reached an agreement, Heber was stunned for a moment. Among the five of them, it seemed like he was the only one who did not have the chance to use the evolution cube. Heber looked at the evolution cube and then at Han Xiao's face. His eyes twitched. Without even guessing, he knew that Black Star would definitely not agree to lend him the evolution cube. Suppressing the desire in his heart, Heber adjusted his mood and slowly said, Black Star and I will stay here alone. The three of you can leave first. Looks like your discussion went very smoothly. Black Star, I'll go out first. Aim stood up and stretched. She did not really care about what was being discussed here, and it looked like she was just there to help. However, as Han Xiao's ally, she had the intention of supporting Han Xiao by coming along. Among the five of them present, only she and Han Xiao were close allies. Although the other three did not mention this, they all knew about it. In terms of strength, Han Xiao and Ames were on the same side and completely suppressed the other three. Ames and the other two left, and the door of the hall closed again. Only Han Xiao and Heber were left in the room. This time, the side door opened, and Zoel walked out with a smile. I'm glad the two of you have reached a consensus. Envoy. The two of them nodded slightly. There was a Clint representative behind Zoel. Now that the room was filled with their own people in name, it was clear that they were going to talk business. Just as Han Xiao expected, Zoel tapped his wrist, and a 3D star map projection appeared in midair. In the vast universe map, a new glowing area was marked with the name Flickering World. Using this opportunity, I'll introduce the current situation of the Flickering World to let everyone understand the general exploration progress. You guys should prepare your own exploration plans. When it's officially developed, we'll all have to assign missions. It seems like this is to give us time to think about our own exploration areas. Han Xiao's eyes sparkled. Chapter 782. The 3D star map showed the area of the Flickering World. In the black, unexplored universe, there was a bright area. This was the rich star cluster that the detectors of the three universal civilizations had discovered in the desolate universe belt outside the shattered star ring. It was named the Dawn Star Cluster, and it was the starting point for the exploration of the Flickering World. The Dawn Star Cluster was the first area that the detectors had explored, and it was also the only star cluster that officially belonged to the Flickering World. As the bridgehead for the development of a new star field, it was marked in green. Further out was the gray, unexplored area, which was extremely vast. At first glance, the only Dawn Star cluster that was lit up was like a lonely island in the middle of a vast ocean. Developing a new star field was a huge project that could not be completed overnight. After all, the actual development was different from astronomical observation. The Red Empire spent more than 10 years to obtain the Dawn Star Cluster from the Radiant Federation and defined it as the starting point of the new star field. Due to the conflict between the two parties, the development had been stagnant. However, the astronomical observation of the three universal civilizations was not idle. After more than 10 years of observation, they had roughly defined the territory of the Flickering World and completed the initial map. In the star map given by the Red Empire, The flickering world was roughly divided into 19 star clusters of various sizes. The Dawn star cluster only took up 3% of the entire star field, and the rest were all unexplored areas. Desolate universes were divided into sizes. A star field would usually include many small and medium desolate universe belts, and only super large desolate universe belts were defined as the borders of a star field. The flickering world was not an exception. It was estimated that there were more than 7,000 small and medium desolate universe belts scattered between star zones and star systems. Therefore, to the Dynasty exploration team, the selection of an area was very important. If the direction of exploration was filled with desolate universe belts, the profits and benefits would be pitifully low. The Dynasty has decided to first explore the 3-star clusters adjacent to the Dawn star cluster. Zoel zoomed in on the star map and showed it to them. They are the Renault star cluster, the Geru star cluster, and the Crown star cluster. Han Xiao, Heber, and the Clint representative all focused on the star map. This was a preliminary star map for astronomical observation. Due to the complicated universe environment, there would be some errors, but the general distribution of the planets would not be wrong. Among the 3-star clusters, the Geru star cluster was the largest. It had many desolate universe belts, while the other two were average. There were 2 types of desolate universe belts. One type was where the planets were sparse and spaced far apart from each other, or where there was a lack of stellar systems and certain high-energy celestial bodies. It was a barren area that could be discovered through astronomical observation. The other type was where the planets in the area were generally barren of resources. This type was more obscure than the former. It looked like a normal area, but in fact it required field exploration to determine that it was a desolate universe belt. At this time, although the star map had a rough distribution, the information of every planet was in an unknown state. This was a semi-finished star map. The Red Empire's development was to complete the detailed information of every planet in the star map through field exploration, correct astronomical errors, and occupy the rich planets in advance. That was the job of the exploration team. Even if it was an obvious barren universe belt, they had to explore it. There were countless planets in a star field. Even if the Empire only planned to explore 3-star clusters, it would still be a huge project. Renault star cluster. Heber looked at it for a while and made his choice. The Bloodshed Land and the Clint Kingdom advanced and retreated together, exploring the same area together. Black Star, what about you? Zoel turned around. Han Xiao stroked his chin. I'll choose the Geru star cluster. Geru, huh? This area has the fewest people. Sure. Zoel nodded. Han Xiaoxin smiled. He and Heber had agreed to explore separately and not interfere with each other. Furthermore, he knew that among the 3-star clusters, the Geru star cluster had the most potential benefits. It seemed like the Geru star cluster had more desolate universe belts than the other 2-star clusters, but in reality, the other 2-star clusters also had quite a number of desolate universe belts. In the desolate universe belt of the Geru star cluster, there were even some ruins of galactic civilizations that had great archaeological value. In terms of resources, the Geru star cluster was slightly larger and had many stellar systems. It also had more habitable and resource-rich planets. In terms of species, the Geru star cluster had more intelligent civilizations, and most of them were still at the surface civilization stage. It was more convenient to explore. In his previous life, the Geru star cluster was one of the most prosperous star clusters in the flickering world and was very suitable for investment. Therefore, Han Xiao decided to develop the Geru star cluster after comprehensive consideration. There was another important reason. The ownerless universal treasure that existed in the flickering world in Han Xiao's memories was located in a desolate universe belt near the Geru star cluster. It did not belong to the dynasty's first exploration phase. It would be more convenient for him to go there if it was close. Other than me, no one knows about the existence of this universal treasure for now. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. He was determined to obtain this item. This time, a mission notification popped up on the interface. You have triggered Grade S plus Mission Series, Flickering World. Mission Introduction. Flickering world. A new star field represents a new structure. Exploring this star field is both your responsibility and your opportunity. Tip: mission requirements, mission rewards, exploration points, and mission rating depend on your faction. You belong to the Red Empire faction or the Black Star Corps faction. Mission requirements. Explore the flickering world for the Red Empire as a member of the Black Star Corps. You have received the first round of exploration. Current exploration area: Geru Star Cluster Personal Exploration Points. 0 total exploration points. 0 current rating. Era marks. Mission rewards depend on mission rating, and mission rating depends on total exploration points. Exploration points come from the results of exploration, such as completing a planet's field exploration, perfecting planet information, correcting star map errors, successfully setting up an area observation buoy, discovering civilization ruins, discovering planet history, coming into contact with intelligent species, operating strongholds, discovering habitable planets and resource planets, discovering rare resources, and so on. Flickering world, main storyline mission. Han Xiao was excited. This main storyline mission was very large in scale, and the mechanism was very complicated. It was a combination of chain missions and faction series missions, and its difficulty was S+. First of all, the details of this mission would change depending on the faction. Not all players were members of the Red Empire. After the Flickering World was opened, the players of the various star fields represented different organizations, and their exploration areas were different. The reward system was also different. For example, the Red Empire's exploration area was larger, which meant that the difficulty was higher. For example, the exploration points were divided into individual and total exploration points. Individual exploration points were the result of one's own efforts. Every time one accumulated a certain amount of exploration points, they would be rewarded. The Red Empire's exploration points standard was higher than the other factions, but the rewards were also more generous. The total exploration points were the sum of the individual exploration points of the players of the same faction. It required the players of the same faction to work together, and there were also periodic rewards. The total exploration points were linked to the mission rating. When the total exploration points were enough to raise the mission rating by a small level, all the players of the same faction would receive the reward, which would be distributed according to the exploration points of the players. Every exploration area was equivalent to one of the chain missions. After the exploration of the area was completed, the reward would be calculated according to the mission rating. After changing to a new exploration area, the total exploration points and personal exploration points would be reset to 0. The S+ overall mission, Flickering World, would only be calculated after the entire star field was explored. The reward would be calculated according to the exploration points and mission rating of each exploration area. Han Xiao rolled his eyes. The exploration had not officially started yet. With this mission, he could distribute it to the army members in advance. At the same time, he could let the players know that they had a new main storyline after the Secret War. After talking about business, the star map flashed, and the chip on Zol's wrist returned. "I'll report your intentions to the dynasty. There shouldn't be any problems," Zoel said with a smile. The Shattered Star Ring was the closest to the Flickering World, and the allies in this area were the first echelon of exploration. "There's one more thing." Zoel looked at Han Xiao. "The first batch of elites to be modified by the Evolution Cube has followed the dynasty's transport team into the Shattered Star Ring and will arrive at the Colton Star Cluster soon. Black Star, don't forget to welcome them. The transport team has the first batch of resources that the dynasty will give you." I'll go back after the meeting." Han Xiao nodded and curiously asked, "Who are the first batch of people to be modified?" "I have a list here. You can take a look at it." Zoel casually sent him a set of information. Opening the list, Han Xiaoxing glanced at it. There were a total of 30,000 people on the list, all of whom were military elites selected by the dynasty. At the very front of the list, there were indeed more than one familiar name. One of the names left a deep impression on him. One of the future dynasty marshals. Tenny Aminos? Han Zhao's eyes widened slightly. This time, Zoel continued. "After this batch of elites, is modified. A small portion of them will stay behind to participate in the development of the flickering world, while the majority will return to the dynasty to continue training. You can go with them to the central galaxy to meet the upper echelons of the dynasty. Black Star? Black Star? Oh, Han Xiao recovered. I heard that. Let's do that. Okay. Zoel did not think much of it and nodded. That's all. I have nothing else to say. Everyone nodded, and Han Xiao left Heber's palace, still thinking about what they had just discussed. Returning to the suite, Han Xiao had just sat down when someone knocked on the door. Hela opened the door, and a few people were standing outside. These people were the representatives of the other star cluster civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring. Seeing that Han Xiao had returned, they immediately chased after him. The moment Han Xiao stepped into the room, they immediately came to visit. Your Excellency Black Star, we hope to have a chat with you, one of them said with a smile. Please come in. Han Xiao invited them in. He was well aware of their intentions. As expected, after chatting for a while, the topic changed to the evolution cube. However, these people were just the beginning, following which the representatives of the various organizations that had participated in the Tyrant's Party came to visit. Very soon, 95% of the people in the guest castle had arrived. The huge suite instantly became crowded. The evolution cube was a rare commodity, and everyone wanted to have a share of it. The Tyrant's Party was originally an event for Heber to consolidate his influence, and the guests were all important figures in the Shattered Star Ring. This made it convenient for Han Xiao to expand his network. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Han Xiao also formally discussed cooperation with the various organizations. Regarding the evolution cube, the Red Empire did not restrict my use of it. If you want to borrow it, it's not impossible, as long as you can satisfy my conditions. Han Xiao's tone was filled with a smile. All the important figures in the room quietened down and listened quietly. Only Han Xiao's voice was left in the room. Ames watched this scene from outside the crowd. Her eyes were fixed on Han Xiao, who was talking among the crowd, and a strange smile appeared in her eyes. You're really suitable for managing an organization. Genius remembered this address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 783. I can provide you with the qualifications to accept the modification, and the conditions for cooperation are very simple. Han Xiao looked around at the people present, raised his finger, and slowly said, The first is of course money. You have to pay a sum of anas every year in exchange for a fixed quota to accept the modification of the evolution cube. This is the basic borrowing fee, and it doesn't have to be money. Minerals, materials, fuel, and other resources can all be converted into money. How much does it cost every year? A star cluster civilization representative asked. That depends on your needs. Han Xiao had an honest expression that said, I've always been honest when doing business. Your borrowing fee every year depends on how many quotas you want to buy every year. You have to report to me in advance, and I will arrange a schedule for you to receive the modification. Every organization can buy a maximum of 1 million quotas every year. After all, I'm also very busy. Although Han Xiao had endless energy, his time was limited, and he could not spend all his time helping others use the evolution cube. Furthermore, the effect of the evolution cube would weaken if the same person used it repeatedly. Han Xiao limited the quota for the long term. What if we want the entire race to enjoy the evolution? Someone could not help but ask. Good question. Han Xiao raised his brows. Apart from the basic quota, you can buy additional modification quotas. There is no limit to the number, but the price will be much higher than the basic quota. It's not that I'm looking down on your wealth, but with the huge population of your civilization, paying this fee will most likely cost a lot. The representatives of the various civilizations felt a little regretful. To them, evolving the entire race at once was the best result. Unfortunately, Han Xiao was clearly not willing to do a one-time deal. The population of a star system civilization started from at least 10 billion, and the cost was astronomical. However, thinking about it, there was indeed no need for the entire race to evolve. Every advanced civilization had a bunch of useless people who did not work, and it was clearly a waste of money to buy them a quota to evolve. The representatives of the various civilizations could accept the millions of quotas every year going the route of the elite and having a portion of them improve their genes first. Han Xiao raised a second finger. The second condition is business cooperation. This will be decided based on the nature of your organization. Civilizations can provide the mining rights of resource planets, transportation routes, and military factories. Armed organizations have to establish a military alliance with the Black Star Corps. Intelligence organizations can share intelligence, and financial groups can provide more business cooperation. These are the prerequisites for you to buy a slot from me. The people present were from different forces. Han Zhao's move was to expand the business of the Black Star Corps. He wanted to get involved in different industries, find more ways to make money, and strive to be successful in all fields. At the same time, through business cooperation, they formed a deeper cooperative relationship with various forces. This was within everyone's expectations, so they were not surprised. After analyzing all kinds of information, they knew that Black Star was an ambitious person. Since he had the opportunity to become a beyond grade A organization, he naturally would not be satisfied with a mere armed organization. The last condition, I hope to have a seat in the Shattered Star Ring Civilization Conference, Han Xiao said with a deep voice. The nature of the Shattered Star Ring Civilization Conference was the same as the Galaxy General Court. It was a political alliance belonging to the civilizations of the star field, and a star system civilization was the prerequisite to join. The representatives of the various civilizations exchanged looks, and someone said hesitantly, "Only civilizations can join. Black Star, although your organization is strong, you're not a civilization." Han Xiao smiled. "Don't worry, I know this rule. I'm prepared to join in the name of my mother planet." Blue Star? Everyone looked at each other. If I remember correctly, your mother planet civilization has not reached the star system level yet. It's not enough to join, Han Xiao shrugged. That's why I raised this condition. Only by obtaining a seat in the civilization conference could he obtain political influence on the surface, which was the so-called official status. This way, even if the Blue Star had not reached the star system level, they would be able to enjoy the protection of the peace treaty. He would also be able to benefit from this. Not only would his personal status be higher, but his Black Star Corps would also be able to transform into a semi-official army. The members of the army would be able to obtain all sorts of legal protection, which was equivalent to a protective talisman. Simply put, as long as this matter was completed, if other players were to casually attack the members of the Black Star Corps, they would become the red names of the many organizations in the Order faction. At the same time, they would lose a lot of favorability with many organizations. Hearing this, the representatives of the various civilizations were helpless. This matter was beyond their authority, and they all said that they could not make the decision and would have to ask the upper echelons before they could give a reply. However, Han Xiao was not worried. The Shattered Star Ring Civilization Conference was controlled by the star cluster civilizations in the star field. Now that these star cluster civilizations wanted to cooperate with him, it was not difficult for them to make an exception and include him. To them, all they had to do was find a reason. During the Secret War period, many star cluster civilizations were not willing to see the Black Star grow and secretly did many things. However, what was done could not be undone, so they could only lower their heads and seek cooperation. The Shattered Star Ring had been affected by the Crimson Tide for 10 years, and the structure of the Shattered Star Ring had undergone subtle changes. At this juncture, it was the best opportunity to make use of this opportunity. After the initial cooperation intent was finalized, the guests bid farewell and left. They were only expressing their stance today. The specific details of the cooperation would need to be discussed by the affairs department of both parties. This would be the job of Sylvia and Philip. Han Xiao tapped on the table and pondered. In his plan, this was a crucial step in the expansion of the Black Star Corps. With the Evolution Cube as the catalyst, he would form a partnership of interest with the Black Star Corps at the center, turning the army into a hub for cooperation between the organizations. Not only would he enjoy the cooperation, but he would also connect the channels of the various organizations, forming a huge interest network. In order to achieve this, his own organization had to be strong enough, and the Black Star Corps, as a beyond grade A organization, had this qualification. Making use of this opportunity, the Black Star Corps could rapidly grow and maintain this interest network for a long time. He could indirectly turn the Shattered Star Ring into the headquarters of the Black Star Corps and obtain a steady stream of resources. Currently, the Evolution Cube was the key to attracting cooperation, but as long as he managed it well in the long term and let the various organizations see the benefits of working together, they would continue to cooperate even without the Evolution Cube. Just like how Heber had made the Tyrant's Party a publicly recognized party for the upper echelons, Han Zhao's goal was to make the Black Star Corps a publicly recognized hub for cooperation and interests in the Shattered Star Ring. After 3 days, all the guests finally arrived. Early in the morning, Heber invited everyone to the palace and officially started the party. The hall was decorated like a banquet. The musicians played their instruments, and the representatives of the various organizations formed small circles in 2s and 3s, whispering to each other. Han Xiao and the others also occupied a corner and were surrounded by many people. The players who followed them were also brought in. They looked around curiously and used their detection skills on the people around them. Everywhere they looked, everyone was a big shot. A few beyond grade, as were also chatting with people in the hall. These players had heard about the Tyrant's Party in the past few days. Now that they saw so many organization representatives, the importance of this party skyrocketed in their hearts. All the guests present added up to the ruling class of the Shattered Star Ring. It turned out that Black Star was also at this level. Such high-level activities were usually not accessible to the players. These people posted about the Tyrant's Party on the forums, and only then did the players know of such a party and began discussing it excitedly. So Black Star is interacting with people of this level now. He's a faction leader. It's inevitable. All 5 beyond grades are here. Haha, won't they fight? Isn't Bloodshed Land our enemy? Why is Black Star there? This time, Heber walked out from the crowd. Everyone stopped talking and looked at Heber. In the past decade or so, many things have happened in the Shattered Star Ring. Fortunately, I can still see so many familiar faces today. Heber slowly said, "Before the party begins, I would like to announce something." As he spoke, he turned to look at Han Xiao and said with a deep voice, "After a private discussion, Black Star and I have come to an agreement. We have decided to temporarily stop the war and participate in the Red Empire's development of the Flickering World. Everyone here is a witness." Everyone turned to look at him, and Han Xiao nodded. Flickering World? Many players muttered to themselves. This piece of information immediately attracted their attention. Han Xiaoxin smiled. He knew that Heber would definitely announce this during the party. He immediately released the prepared mission on the faction interface. At the same time, the interface of the many players changed. In the list of missions that could be accepted, the Grade S Plus main storyline mission of Flickering World was placed at the top. Oh my, a new main storyline mission. What the F***CK, Grade S Plus difficulty. This is even higher than the Secret War. This should be our next main storyline in version 3.0. Developing the Flickering World. It seems like this is the next large-scale operation of the Black Star Corps. The army players were overjoyed, and many of them accepted the mission. Such a difficult main storyline was obviously a huge event. Originally, after the Secret War ended, many players had entered a period of aimless, free exploration. Now they had a new goal. Due to the recent series of events, the players at this stage had a strong sense of belonging to the army. In their eyes, the storyline of the Black Star Corps was equivalent to the main storyline. The players did not know much about the details of the Flickering World, and there were countless posts on the forums discussing it. Han Xiao glanced at them and was quite satisfied with the effect of this wave of hype. However, the army players did not know that the Flickering World was not only the storyline of version 3.0 that connected to the Secret War, but also the main storyline of the next version. The cooperation that needed to be discussed had already been discussed a few days ago, and the formal gathering was just a formality for Han Shao. Since Heber had announced a ceasefire, he naturally would not allow his subordinates to cause trouble. With his restrictions, Rothers did not come looking for trouble, and everything was peaceful. Participating in the tyrant's party this time, he had basically completed his goal. Han Shao was quite satisfied with the result. After the gathering ended, he did not stay any longer. After using the evolution cube on Austin once, he left with Ames, Gila, and the other officers. He left as soon as he said he was leaving, not taking a single cloud with him. Who? The spaceship left planet Heber. Han Shao turned on his communicator and dialed Bennett's number. Over the past few days, the representatives of those civilizations had reported his request for cooperation to the upper echelons, and the upper echelons had already replied and agreed to these conditions. Han Shao used the name of Blue Star to obtain a seat in the Shattered Star Ring Civilization Conference, so there was basically no problem with this. Only then did he contact Bennett. Very soon, the call went through. Han Shao, why are you free to look for me today? Bennett's carefree laughter sounded. There's something I have to tell you, Han Shao explained. Hearing this, Bennett was pleasantly surprised. You're helping the Aquamarine Federation enter the Shattered Star Ring Civilization Conference? That's great. Blue Star was only a beginner galactic civilization and was far from the threshold of the Civilization Conference. Being able to enter the Civilization Conference was undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'll be the representative of the civilization. You have no objections, right? Han Shao said. The seat of the Civilization Conference belonged to the entire civilization, and normally, the representative of the civilization would be the government. However, although Han Shao had a close relationship with the Aquamarine Federation, they were still two different forces. If he did this, even if this seat belonged to the Blue Star government, they would only be able to express their opinions through Han Shao. Bennett did not hesitate at all. This is an opportunity that you've fought for us. Furthermore, you're the guardian of Blue Star. Giving the seat to you is actually beneficial to us. You'll have more say than us. He had thought it through very clearly. Even if Blue Star were to develop for many years, they would not be able to reach the achievements of the Black Star Corps. He was not willing to see the Blue Star civilization make the wrong choice in the future. Thus, he was paving the way in advance and trying to bind the Blue Star government to the Black Star Corps. Han Shao smiled and chatted for a while before hanging up. After thinking about it, he decided to use the evolution cube on a large scale for Blue Star when he returned. Since he had obtained the Blue Star government seat, the better Blue Star developed, the greater his benefits would be. That's right, I should go and take a look at the Black Spirit race. I can let them use the evolution cube as well. Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat. This race worshipped him as a totem, so they could be considered half of his people. Chapter 784. Somewhere in the Shattered Star Ring, dense streams of hyperdrive light streaked across the quiet and dark universe. Within the hyperspace movement formation was a huge fleet made up of many Crimson Dynasty heavy-armored ships that looked like giant steel beasts. The heavy industrial-style hull was filled with various shipboard mechanical components. It was awe-inspiring and awe-inspiring. This was the industrial logistics team that the Red Empire had sent to the Shattered Star Ring. Other than the transportation of resources, they were also responsible for industrial construction and had the ability to set up production lines and military factories. The usual method was to use the Red Empire's base expansion pack to quickly form a stronghold and increase the number of soldiers. This industrial logistics team had two main goals. One was to provide logistics for the Shattered Star Ring's garrison and strengthen the garrison's armed forces. The other was to head to the Flickering World's Dawn Star Cluster and build the Dynasty's exploration team's main base there. As for transporting a batch of resources for the Black Star Corps, it was just a small matter. The three universal civilizations had many fast military routes that crossed star fields. They used super-large stargates to connect star fields or set up small and medium-sized stargates in desolate universe belts for continuous jumps. This logistics team spent a lot of time gathering manpower, but the journey was not long. They set off from the central galaxy and arrived at the Shattered Star Ring very quickly. At this moment, on the route of the logistics team, a small reconnaissance fleet was exploring. There were only 12 light reconnaissance spaceships. Below the radar of the reconnaissance main ship, a middle-aged man with a determined face stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the image. Tenny Aminos, the 001, 4855, outstanding graduate of the Dynasty's Journey, Advanced Military Academy. His average score for 62 courses, including strategy, tactics, and actual combat, was first in his batch. After graduation, he entered the Dynasty's military and was recruited by the military to participate in many military operations. He had experienced more than 1,000 galactic battles and had a record of 170 independent commands. He had made many contributions and been promoted several times. Currently, he belonged to the Dynasty's 33rd Army and was a colonel. He was an important figure in the Dynasty's military and was one of the elites who had been modified by the Evolution Cube. He was the one who had requested to be in charge of the reconnaissance work of the transport team. He did not like to be pampered and could not stay idle at the back. Tenny looked very energetic and dignified. His aura was like a burning flame, masculine and strong. His back was straight like a flag that was erected. A semicircular alloy ring that wrapped around the back of his head was pinned to his ears. This was an advanced multi-functional analyzer built by the Empire. It had the functions of communication, detection, analysis, strategic view, and so on. He was wearing the Red Empire's high-ranking military officer uniform. It was black with red and gold embellishments. In the middle of his chest was the Empire's national emblem. The Crimson Dynasty's high-ranking military officer uniforms were all made of nanocloth. They were light, tough, and had extremely high defense. They also had functions such as stress shields, deflector shields, kinetic energy accumulation, light reflection, advanced life support, environmental adaptation, and so on. They were extremely useful in both combat and daily life. Colonel Tenny, the radar intercepted a distress signal at coordinates T406. 22. It's on our route. According to the over-the-horizon observation, an interstellar travel team was attacked by a galactic pirate group. The enemy has 30 battleships, and the spaceships are low-level models. His personal adjutant, Corbouz, saluted and reported the situation loudly. Issue a regional broadcast and warn them to leave our path immediately. Tenny spoke very quickly. The broadcast has been issued, but the enemy did not respond. Corbouz looked at the detection screen and said loudly, "The enemy has increased their attack, trying to finish off the interstellar travel team as soon as possible. You report the situation to the main force. The rest of you, change to battle formation. Level 2 alert. Load the over-the-horizon towing shooting tactic and roaming tactic." Tenny ordered calmly. His mission was to scout the road and remove any unstable factors. As an elite officer of the Dynasty, he did not like to cause unnecessary trouble. The call for help from the interstellar travel team was not within his consideration. It was only because this group of people happened to be blocking the hyperdrive route of the main force that he ordered the fleet to chase them away. The 12 reconnaissance battleships formed a fan and headed toward the galactic pirates. As soon as they entered the over-the-horizon shooting range, they started firing. This group of galactic pirates was attacked and tried to fight back, but they could barely hit the reconnaissance fleet. Under Tenny's command, the reconnaissance fleet controlled the maximum shooting range. After blowing up a few enemy battleships easily, Tenny changed tactics and ordered the reconnaissance fleet to circle around and surround them. Although the total number was less than half of the enemies, Tenny was always able to form an advantage in numbers. Under his tactical command, it was like this group of galactic pirates was surrounded and slowly eaten up. Tenny was used to fighting in large armies. Small group battles were not his forte, but he was still good at it. His tactical style was as steady as a mountain, and he was not in a hurry. It was like an adult playing with a child. No matter what these galactic pirates did, they were easily resolved by him. Even if the reconnaissance fleet did not release any bubbles, space stabilizers, these galactic pirates would not be able to find a chance to escape through hyperdrive. They were beaten up so badly that they did not know where they were. The difference in tactical ability was like heaven and earth, and there was also a huge difference in the performance of the spaceship. This battle did not last long, and this group of galactic pirates was wiped out without any surprise. Tenny's losses were basically zero, and he only used a portion of the energy to maintain the shield. Inform the main force that the problem is solved. Tenny's tone was calm. He was used to large-scale galactic wars, and the battle just now was not even a warm-up for him. He did it casually and was very calm. Colonel, the spaceship of this interstellar travel team is severely damaged and cannot support long-distance travel. They are begging to board the ship. Corbu's adjutant's voice was like thunder. Rejected. Tenny's expression did not change. Activate the scanning probe and remotely detect the energy level of the individuals in the spaceship of this travel team. If there are no abnormalities, release a small cabin for them to use as a carrier. Tenny had experience with this. There were too many cases in history where the distress signal was used as a trap. He was used to being wary of traps and scanning to see if there were any high-level combatants hiding. Even if there were no problems, he would not let outsiders board his battleship. Instead, he would use an empty small cabin to throw these stranded passengers to the nearest colonial planet. He would not waste time escorting them. Corbu's suddenly received a message. Colonel, someone in this group of passengers wishes to speak to you. His identity is in the database. He's the leader of a small financial group in the Shattered Star Ring. He said that he knows Black Star. How'd he know that we're looking for Black Star? It sounds like a lousy trap. Tenny raised his brows. This might be easy to explain. Corbu's looked at the information, shook his head, and said, the news of our dynasty forming an alliance with Black Star has spread very widely in the Shattered Star Ring. Tenny thought for a while and said, connect the call. I'll talk to him. Under normal circumstances, he would not respond to such a request from an unrelated person. However, since the other party mentioned Black Star, it happened to be a topic that he had been very curious about recently. Black Star was the dynasty's new ally, and Tenny knew that he was going to Black Star to accept the modification of the evolution cube. Regardless of friend or foe, before dealing with others, he would first understand the target through intelligence. This came from his military habit. He had already read all the information about Black Star on paper and needed more information about Han Xiao. Beep. The call went through, and this financial group leader had an excited and nervous look on his face. After being attacked by the galactic pirates, he originally thought that he was going to be unlucky. He did not expect to be saved by the Red Empire and see the opportunity to contact a universal civilization. In order to attract attention, he decided to try and mention Black Star's name. How do you know Black Star? More than 10 years ago, I once hired Black Star's mercenary group and came into close contact with Black Star. This is all recorded. This person replied hurriedly. Okay, tell me from the beginning. Tenny narrowed his eyes. Even in the central galaxy, there was no example of someone rising so quickly. It could be said that Black Star had broken the historical record of advancing from an ordinary person to a beyond grade A super. Tenny was very curious about such a legendary person. Furthermore, Black Star was also a mechanic like him, a beyond grade A of the same class. Tenny even had the intention of asking him for advice. Returning from planet Heber, Han Xiao brought back the cooperation intentions of many organizations. Sylvia immediately became busy discussing the details of the cooperation with different organizations every day. She was so busy that her feet barely touched the ground. Thankfully, she had the physique of a calamity grade. If it was an ordinary person, they would have probably died from exhaustion. Sylvia was very hardworking, and Han Xiao was very happy about this. If his manager was Jenny, she would probably have tried to kill him with a psionic bomb. Ames did not return to Floating Dragon Island. She took the initiative to find Han Xiao to accompany her. It did not matter where they went. The main thing was that she had an old friend of the same level to chat with every day. Furthermore, working together with Han Xiao, she felt that they would often encounter interesting things. The dynasty's elites were still on the way, so Han Shao decided to complete the evolution of Blue Star and the Black Spirit race first. Blue Star needed time to gather the people, so he left this matter to Bennett. Han Shao went to the Black Spirit race first. The Black Spirit race had a mental connection network, so it was easier to gather them. Planet Black Spirit. Ever since the Black Spirit race gained a foothold on this uninhabited planet, the name of this planet had officially changed on the star map. Who? The spaceship broke through the atmosphere and slowly descended. The grayish-green surface gradually enlarged in his vision. The radar showed signs of life. Han Shao piloted the spaceship and headed toward the Germinal tribe's territory. There were no clouds in the sky. After passing through the vast land that was mainly made of rocks and decorated with sparse forests, a huge sinkhole appeared in front of them. This was a large, open-air nest. Densely packed holes were distributed on the walls of the nest, extending in all directions. This was originally an underground nest, but the Black Spirit race had removed the soil above their heads and exposed it. Han Shao had once borrowed a portion of the Black Spirit race to mine resource planets. The Black Spirit race had been influenced by the various cultures in the galaxy and had started to learn about wisdom and civilization. Because the mental network had a highly unified group consciousness, the spread of knowledge was extremely efficient. In the past decade or so, the Black Spirit race had tried to abandon their beastly habits and learned how to use tools to build nests on the ground. There were some messy piles of rocks in this open-air nest, which were actually the embryonic form of a building. The Black Spirit race had gradually walked up to the surface from underground. This could actually be considered the embryonic form of a city. In the center of the nest stood a huge prophecy stone totem, carved into a strange shape. Han Shao squinted his eyes and carefully looked at it for a long time before confirming that this sculpture with a shell, spikes all over its body, and sharp fangs in its mouth was carved into him. Han Shao did not know whether to laugh or cry. After adding so many artistic touches, he could still recognize who it was. The Black Spirit race's stone carving skills were really uncanny. But this aesthetic sense, the spaceship floated above the nest. The Germinal tribe's Black Spirit race members all crawled out of their caves and looked up at the spaceship. Han Shao walked out of the cabin door and slowly descended from the sky. The Black Spirit race below became restless, and they all lowered their bodies as if they were worshipping. Fu Ding released his psychic power and let Han Shao log into the Prophecy Stone Group's chat server. As soon as Han Shao entered the mental network of the Black Spirit race, countless voices flooded over. The thoughts of every Black Spirit race member were clear and clear. What a powerful aura. It's so beautiful. God Black Star, you've come to see us again. Countless Black Spirit race members chattered in the mental network, expressing their love and respect for Han Shao. The Black Spirit race treated him as a totem god and called him God. His reputation had always been at reverence. The Germinal tribe's leader's voice sounded full of worship. Respected God Black Star, what do you need us to do? This time, it's to help you evolve. Han Shao explained the function of the evolution cube. The Black Spirit race members were pleasantly surprised. They all chanted strange prayers, thinking that this was the good news of their god. This news was spread through the mental network almost instantly to all the Black Spirit race members in the nest. They all moved and surrounded Han Shao in circles. Their forelimbs were on the ground, and their lower abdomens were raised in a respectful manner. Their gathering speed was extremely fast. What a highly efficient race. Han Shao could not help but sigh. He had always felt that the Black Spirit race's civilization potential was abnormal. They were born with a mental network to coordinate group movements, and it was extremely convenient for them to move together. Furthermore, the mental network allowed them to share knowledge and wisdom. It was almost easy for them to spread knowledge. Perhaps an hour of communication with the Black Spirit race would be equivalent to decades or even centuries of communication with other races. Genius remembered this address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 785. The small silver-white cube floated above the totem, spinning and spitting out black, cloud-like energy. It gave off a déjà vu of a magic weapon. The evolution energy spread throughout the nest, enveloping the black spirit race one by one. All of a sudden, the nest was filled with black cocoons, and rustling sounds could be heard. It sounded like their shells were cracking and undergoing a second growth. Han Zhao's fingertips flashed with mechanical force, and the small silver cube closed with a click. It obediently returned to his hand, and he put it back on his neck. All we have to do now is wait. I wonder what the black spirit race will evolve into. Han Zhao nodded in his mind. Advanced civilizations more or less had secret technology that others could not decipher. The evolution cube was a relic of a quasi-universal civilization, and the technology contained within had been lost. When it was in Cisco's hands, even the arcane church did not understand the principles behind it. Han Zhao had only measured the various parameters of the evolution cube. The restrictions of this universal treasure were relatively fewer. The evolution cube would absorb multidimensional energy and dark energy to recharge itself. The way to use it on a large scale was to cover an area with the evolution energy and evolve all the creatures in the area. This kind of evolution energy belonged to the category of space wonders. It was safe and harmless, surpassing all genetic drugs and genetic hormones. It was as if countless years of natural evolution had been condensed into an individual. They didn't have to wait for long before a clear and crisp sound suddenly blended into the cacophony of rustling sounds. Kacha! One of the black cocoons cracked open, revealing the black spirit race inside. The black spirit race's original appearance was a strange, pitch-black insect. There was fur between its shells, and its mouth parts were like small awls used to drill through rocks. They did not have eyes, only 4 sensory tentacles that replaced their vision. They had 4 muscular legs and a shovel-shaped shell tail. They looked more like wild beasts and were very ferocious. Now, the appearance of the black spirit race had changed drastically. The ratio of the carapace to the muscles became even more harmonious, presenting a streamlined shape. It was much more pleasing to the eye. The fine hairs that grew between the gaps had all fallen off, becoming smooth and glossy. Not a single hair was left. It was much neater. The fangs in their mouths became neat, and of the 4 tentacles on their heads, the top 2 became longer and thicker, hanging behind their heads like hair. However, the bottom 2 disappeared and became indigo blue eyes the size among beans. The sensory tentacles were organs that were formed to adapt to life underground. The black spirit race had already started to adapt to the sunlight and tried to live on the surface. Originally, it would have taken many years for them to slowly evolve their eyes, but the evolution cube had greatly shortened this process. The black spirit race still mainly crawled, but the muscles on their hind legs had become thicker. It seemed that they could easily stand upright. Kacha. With the black spirit race being the first to complete their transformation, it seemed to have caused a chain reaction. Large patches of black cocoons shattered, and the brand new black spirit race looked around in confusion. The astonishment of the black spirit race was transmitted through the mental network layer by layer. In Han Zhao's ears, these inner thoughts sounded like a child's voice. What is this feeling? What a clear vision. Is this what vision is like? The sun is so bright. This was the first time they had normal vision. Countless black spirit race members felt that it was novel and adapted to their new organs. Han Zhao suddenly realized that the biggest change in the black spirit race was not their appearance, but their mental body. They were born with a mental connection, which meant that the black spirit race had extremely high mental talent. Now that this talent had been magnified, the black spirit race's brains had become more developed. At this time, a clear voice sounded in Han Xiaoxin's mind, which made him slightly stunned. This voice was not transmitted through the Prophecy Stone chat server, but directly through mental power. God Blackstar, we will always remember the good news you spread. Han Xiao looked over and saw that the Germinal tribe leader was one size larger than an ordinary black spirit race member. It was rather conspicuous. and its bean-sized eyes were staring at him. The mental message just now had been sent by it. You can use mental power now. Han Xiao was curious. The prophecy stone was the base of the Black Spirit race's mental network. Without this auxiliary tool, the Black Spirit race would not be able to communicate mentally. However, the Germinal tribe leader was able to complete the mental message without the help of the prophecy stone. I'm not sure either. I just suddenly felt that I could do it. I think I can still do this. The Germinal tribe leader shook its head, suddenly picked up a small piece of prophecy stone, and swallowed it into its stomach. Then, a circle of invisible energy spread out from its head. Fu Ding's expression changed slightly. What a special mental power. It has the aura of the prophecy stone. The next moment, the Germinal tribe leader's mental power formed a new mental network. It turned itself into a chat server. It had undergone some kind of positive mutation during its evolution, which greatly stimulated its mental talent. There were dozens of other mutants like it. Han Xiao was shocked. Every prophecy stone was equivalent to an individual mental network server. Only the Black Spirit race members in the same server could communicate mentally with each other. The Nest Totem was the entire tribe's main server. Now, there was a mutant that could build its own server, which once again increased the mobility of the race and made it more convenient to coordinate. This meant a lot to a race. Their racial talent had been strengthened as a whole, and they could adapt to more environments. A race with such high potential might really be able to develop into an extremely powerful civilization in the future. Han Xiaoxin was filled with emotions. He had made the right choice by keeping the Black Spirit race. Han Xiao had a feeling that this casual investment would bring him benefits beyond his imagination in the future. After bidding farewell to the Germinal tribe, Han Xiao did the same for the other tribes and completed their evolution. Because the Black Spirit race had migrated together, although the tribes had been separated for 10 years, they were very close to each other. They were scattered around the Germinal tribe, so it did not take much time. Han Xiao had given them the opportunity to transform, and the Black Spirit race was extremely grateful to him, this god. Their faith became even more firm, and they believed that they were a race that was blessed by the gods. After Han Xiao left in the spaceship, the various tribes mobilized to carve new murals. The little person representing Han Xiao floated in the air, and countless Black Spirit race members were worshipping him below. This day was forever recorded in the history of the Black Spirit race. Completing the evolution of the Black Spirit race was faster than Han Xiao had expected. He walked and stopped, looking for a star to train Heber's energy cultivation technique, all the way to the blue star. Welcome home. On the dock, Bennett looked at Han Xiao, who was walking down from the spaceship, and smiled like an old friend reuniting. Home. Han Xiao was in a daze for a moment before coming back to his senses. He suppressed some of his emotions and sized up Bennett in front of him. Bennett's figure was still tall and straight, and his white hair was neatly combed. Bennett was followed by a group of officers, looking very nervous and fearful. Facing Black Star, the Protector, only Bennett could talk and laugh. The other superiors were all in awe. It had only been a few years since Black Star's annihilation of a country with a single word, and these people still remembered the example of the Six Nations. Facing a galactic figure who could decide the life and death of a regime with a single word, they could not help but feel nervous. However, Black Star's actions back then had shown results in the past few years. From the perspective of the entire civilization, there were indeed benefits to unifying the regime. It greatly reduced internal friction, and decision-making was more efficient. If they entered the Galactic Society with a divided regime, the current situation of the Luhan Beastmen was an example. You look very energetic. Han Xiao nodded and looked at the little boy beside Bennett. Nero raised his head and looked at Han Xiao curiously. He had seen Han Xiao's figure in textbooks countless times, and he had even memorized his deeds. This was the first time he had seen him in person. Bennett rubbed Nero's head and smiled. Greet him, Godfather. Nero's tone was timid. Good boy. Han Xiao smiled, bent down, and picked Nero up, placing him firmly in his arms. He then tapped Nero's forehead with his finger. Nero was Bennett's child, and Bennett had decided to stay in Blue Star and entrusted his child to him. Naturally, he was willing to take care of his old friend's child. Han Zhao's status was too high, and Nero was originally a little nervous. However, Han Xiao was very kind to him, so he quickly relaxed and started laughing from the teasing. "Here's a toy for you." Han Xiao waved his hand, and nanoparticles flew out from his clothes and quickly turned into a black and gold hovering guard that circled around Nero. This was a high-level orange equipment, and its energy core was a stable dark energy reactor. It could be used for both offense and defense, and it had many functions. A blue and gold spark ignited on Han Zhao's palm and entered the hovering guard. At this moment, he gave this machine a permanent buff, Emperor's Gift, and machinery fusion, giving this machine the ability to grow. This hovering guard is a gift for you to protect yourself. You can give it a name. Han Xiao pinched his fingers and created a nano-sized neural connection device. He then pressed it and implanted it into the back of Nero's head. There was no pain. He then added, "It can move according to your thoughts." However, this thing is very powerful, so it's best not to use it on others, especially not to use it on your father. An orange equipment created by a Beyond Grade A Super was extremely powerful. Even without the mechanical force bonus, this hovering guard could easily deal with a Grade C Super. This type of machine did not have a level restriction, and to low-grade supers, this was equivalent to a divine weapon. He would not even sell it to the players. Nero tried to control the hovering guard, and with a thought, the hovering guard moved according to his thoughts. His eyes lit up as though he had discovered a new continent. "Thank you, Godfather." Nero was overjoyed and hugged Han Zhao's neck. "Go and play." Han Xiao laughed and placed Nero down. He then turned around and headed to the government building with Bennett. Along the way, Bennett began to report the situation. "I have issued a gathering order in the various cities, and the gathering work is almost done. I can't do anything about those who missed out." He explained the situation of the evolution cube to the people of Blue Star. Those who wanted to evolve would take the initiative to gather, which would save them a lot of time. However, there were also some who did not want to be gathered. Let those who missed out go. I'm not forcing everyone to evolve. Han Xiao shook his head. "By the way, I'll let you use it once later." Bennett bitterly smiled. "I actually didn't want to use it. You're different." Han Xiao waved his hands and said, "This involves the evolution of an entire civilization. If you don't personally experience it for the people, how can you be at ease?" Bennett helplessly shook his head and did not refute. "By the way, there's also Nero." Han Xiao paused. "Let me bring him into the galaxy this time. I'll help him become a super. He's still too young." Bennett was stunned. The earlier he becomes a super, the better. Since you want Nero to roam the universe in the future, it's best to let him get used to life in the galaxy as soon as possible. Furthermore, with me around, what are you worried about? Do you think I'll kidnap your child? He's my godson, and I'll bring him around the universe for a few months before sending him back." Han Xiao smiled. All right then." Bennett was a little hesitant, but nodded in the end. He had chosen to stay on his mother planet, but he did not want to restrict Nero's future because of him. At this moment, Han Xiao suddenly thought of something. The child of an old friend definitely had to be nurtured, and he wanted to check Nero's attributes. Turning around, he saw Nero following behind them, happily playing with his new toy. Han Xiao secretly released a small amount of mechanical force, transforming the nanoparticles into thin metal needles that were hard to see with the naked eye. He remotely controlled the needles to poke Nero's butt. Ouch! Nero felt a sharp pain in his, but as if something had poked him. He immediately looked around, but did not discover anything. As he had triggered 1 point of damage, a combat notification popped up on his interface, and Nero's attributes were displayed before his eyes. Han Xiao glanced at it, and his eyes suddenly froze. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Nero was still an ordinary child, and his attribute panel was empty. However, there was a dazzling ability in his talent column that made Han Zhao's heart skip a beat. Molding talent, advanced luck glow. This is the same level of luck glow as Fu Ding. This kid is an advanced main character? Han Xiaoxin's heart skipped a beat, and he almost wanted to rub his eyes. Bennett's life in his previous life was completely different, and there was no such character as Nero. This was also the first time he had seen him. Bennett had a low-grade luck glow, but his son had a high-grade luck glow. The probability was way too low. Could it be that this thing could be inherited? At this moment, a bold guess appeared in his mind. Could it be Nero's advanced luck glow has something to do with me? Thinking about it carefully, Nero's father was the leader of the Aquamarine Federation, and his godfather was the famous Black Star. For him to be able to receive the personal grooming of a beyond grade A from a young age, wasn't that great luck? Han Xiao did not expect that his family's vegetable field would grow such high-quality leeks, and he was pleasantly surprised. Even the way he looked at Nero changed. Although Nero was only a little kid now, in Han Xiao's eyes, this kid had already become a treasure that exuded the aura of a European emperor. If it was said that he had only decided to take care of Nero previously because of his relationship with him, now he truly wanted to nurture this potential stock. For such an advanced main character, his future achievements would at least be a calamity grade. What a pleasant surprise! Han Xiao became excited. Chapter 786. The next day, the various governments of Blue Star cities gathered, and the first to accept the Evolution Cube's transformation were the residents of the capital, Black Star City. The spaceship carried Han Xiao, Bennett, and the rest, and slowly flew above the city. The energy released by the Evolution Cube covered the entire crowd. Perhaps this will open a new chapter in the history of the Blue Star civilization. Bennett could not help but sigh. He had already undergone the transformation the night before, so he had a deep understanding of the effects of the Evolution Cube. It was as if he had returned to the prime of his life. His body was filled with energy, and his mind was more agile. Turning around to look at Han Zhao's back, Bennett was filled with emotions. For Blue Star to have its current era, it was all thanks to this old friend of his. 20 years ago, who would have thought that a traitor of the Germinal organization could reach such incredible heights? The speed of the spaceship was very fast, and the Evolution Cube was soon spread to every city. Han Xiao did not care about how happy the people were. Naturally, Bennett would take care of the follow-up matters, and he would definitely publicize his contributions. He might even write this story into the textbooks. Han Xiao completed his work and did not plan to stay in Blue Star any longer. He wanted to leave immediately. Sylvia had sent him news that the Red Empire's team had entered the Garten Star system and was about to arrive at the Black Star Corps headquarters. He had to return. The spaceship returned to the dock, and a gentle lady was waiting there with Nero. Bennett brought his officers down from the spaceship and chatted with the lady for a while. He then turned around and pushed Nero's back, indicating for him to get on the spaceship. Go. Your future is the sea of stars. Black Star will take care of you, Bennett said slowly. Nero's eyes were red. Last night, he had found out that he was going to follow his godfather into the universe. He had almost thought that his godfather did not want him anymore and had cried. Bennett had persuaded him for a long time before he finally accepted this matter. He had only read about the Galactic Society in textbooks and on the internet. This was the first time he had entered the universe. Thinking about the strange aliens in the books, he was both scared and excited. With his short legs, Nero climbed up the stairs with much difficulty. Han Xiao stood beside the door and pulled him in. Han Xiao and Bennett looked at each other and nodded. Close the door, Han Xiao ordered. Chi. As the cabin door slowly closed, Nero turned around and saw Bennett and his mother standing on the dock. They had reluctant expressions on their faces as they waved goodbye to him. Crack. The last line of sight disappeared, and the cabin door was tightly locked, as if it was separating two different worlds. Come with me. Han Xiao shook his head and pulled Nero to the cockpit. Nero looked through the porthole and saw the city rapidly shrinking beneath his feet. The blue sky above his head gradually turned dark. Dong! The spaceship shook slightly and left the planet's atmosphere. The blue star's full appearance appeared in front of Nero's eyes. He was dumbfounded and looked at this scene in a daze. This experience was too shocking for a child like him. He grabbed on a Han Zhao's trousers tightly. This was the only support for his young heart. Han Zhao stood quietly by the side with a smile. After the spaceship entered hyperdrive, he pulled Nero out of the cockpit and introduced him to the various galactic knowledge while showing him around the spaceship. There are many things to take note of. You don't have to be nervous. With me here, most people in the universe will not be able to harm you. The two of them came to the hall. Ames, Hela, and the rest of the Black Star Guard were chatting. When they saw Nero, they all had amiable expressions and took turns to tease him. Towards this obedient child, everyone was quite fond of him. Even Hela had put away her unapproachable aura, and her sharp eyes seemed to have softened. This is Uncle Bennett's child. Aurora hugged Nero in her arms and couldn't bear to let him go. She was the youngest here in terms of age and seniority. Now that there was finally someone younger, she was very happy. Furthermore, this was the child of someone she knew. Nero's face turned red, and he froze on the spot, not daring to move. Han Zhao could not help but pull Aurora away and helplessly said, "Stop hugging him. Do you want to suffocate him to death?" Lowering her head to look at her heavy chest, Aurora's face turned slightly red. She snorted and punched Han Zhao's waist. However, to him, it was no different from scratching an itch. "Right, Uncle Han Zhao gave you a present. Let me give you a present too." Aurora's eyes suddenly lit up. She grabbed her chest and pulled out a ball of warm golden energy, which she slapped into Nero's chest. What is this?" Nero was startled. Immediately after, his body felt warm and comfortable, and inexhaustible strength appeared in his body. He curiously touched his chest, as though he could not understand how this ball of golden light entered his body. Aurora blinked her eyes and said with satisfaction, "This is my ability. I gave you a ball of refined life energy that will prevent you from getting sick. Furthermore, it will continuously activate your cells and strengthen your body. In the future, you will grow taller and stronger." Not only could her life energy heal people, but could also increase the target's buff and even stimulate the growth of living beings. For example, the giant white bear that had been left behind in the Black Star Army headquarters to eat and drink every day had indirectly absorbed a large amount of life force from Aurora, turning into a powerful individual. In other words, if one absorbed Aurora's life force for a long period of time, there would be a chance for one to turn from a normal template to an elite template and obtain stronger attributes. Seeing this, Hela, who had been silent all this while, stood up and said, "Then I will give you a present as well." She rubbed her fingers and shot out a red energy ball, which hit the back of Nero's hand. The back of Nero's hand felt as though it had been scalded, and he cried out in shock while holding onto the back of his hand with tears in his eyes. He lowered his head and saw a bright red pattern on the back of his hand that extended all the way to his elbow like a tattoo. This is the Undead brand. As long as you kill a living being, this brand will absorb the remnant soul of the other party and strengthen your spiritual energy, Hela said casually. Although it was not appropriate to mention killing to a child, everyone was used to it. Almost everyone present was a Calamity-grade super, and all of them had killed hundreds of thousands of people. They would never deliberately describe a fairy tale world to a child. Furthermore, since Nero had been groomed by Black Star, he would definitely not be an ordinary person in the future. Thus, no one avoided this topic. Nero was a little afraid and carefully pulled his sleeves, wanting to cover the tattoo on the back of his hand. "Then I will give you something as well." Fu Ding smiled, and his explosive friendliness made Nero relax. Fu Ding released an invisible psychic energy into Nero's mind, forming a Calamity-grade psychic barrier to prevent others from prying into his mind or harming him. The Black Star Guard were not stingy and took out all sorts of things to give to Nero. Although they were worthless in the eyes of a Calamity-grade super, in the universe, they were all treasures in the eyes of low-grade supers. Looking at this scene, Han Zhao suddenly had a strong sense of déjà vu. Why does this scene look so familiar? Isn't Nero one of those main characters who was groomed by a bunch of old men from a young age? Indeed, it's such an advanced luck glow. Han Xiaoxin found it funny. To have received so many treasures from a young age, this kid's path is really wide. Finally, it was Hardaway's turn. Hardaway touched his body and felt that there was nothing he could take out. Seeing everyone staring at him, he thought for a moment before taking out a deck of Wayne cards and chuckling. Then I will teach you how to play cards. Scram! Bang! Han Xiao stood up, raised his leg, and kicked Hadavi to the ground. The nanoparticles turned into shackles and tied Hadavi up tightly. Nero was shocked and hurriedly retreated. The other Black Star Guards looked left and right, pretending to be enjoying the scenery. Whoa! Hardaway's mouth was sealed by alloy, and he could not move at all. Only his eyes were rolling around. Lie on the ground and reflect for a while. Han Xiao was furious. Teach someone how to play cards, and you will be struck by lightning. It's fine if you don't use fertilizer, but you want to poison my precious leek? Do you want my leek to follow in her Lu's footsteps and sink into the abyss of laziness? Aim supported her chin with her hand and smiled at this scene. Suddenly, she waved her hand and signaled for Nero to come over. Nero obediently came before Ames and was a little nervous. Although Ames' attitude was very amiable, the feeling she gave him was completely different from the other Black Star Guards. It was as if there was a special noble aura around her. In front of her, Nero subconsciously became reserved. Don't be nervous. I have something for you too. Ames smiled and suddenly took off the obsidian necklace on her neck and placed it in Nero's hand. Han Xiao was a little surprised. This necklace did not have any special functions, and it was just an ordinary accessory. However, Ames often wore it, so he did not know what was the story behind it. Take good care of it, Ames instructed with a smile. She did not seem to have any intention of explaining herself as she glanced at Han Xiao. Nero hurriedly nodded and carefully kept the necklace. After all the old grandpas had given their treasures, Han Xiao pulled Nero in front of him and asked with a smile, I promised your father that I would nurture you into a powerful super. You must have learned some super classes in Blue Star. Do you still remember the different super classes? Nero nodded and counted with his fingers. There are 5: Pugilist, Esper, Mechanic, Magic, and Psychic. Now, it's your turn to make a choice. Which super do you want to become? Han Xiao smiled. He did not know which super talent Nero had, so he asked directly. Everyone fell silent. Choosing a superclass was a huge matter that would decide one's life. Black Star seemed to be prepared to nurture Nero, so his choice was very important. Nero hesitated for a moment before raising his head to look at the floating guards flying above his head. His gaze became firm. Godfather, I want to be a mechanic. Good choice. Han Xiao was overjoyed. Nero had chosen the mechanic class, so he could officially become Han Xiao's student. In the Shattered Star Ring, Han Xiao was the peak of the mechanic class, and no one was more qualified than him to teach others. Hearing that, many of the Black Star Guards sighed. Sigh, isn't it good to be a human? Han Xiao activated Nero's mechanical force on the spaceship. With his current level, the method of activating mechanical force was no longer the electrotherapy that Sylvia had experienced. It was a safer and painless method. Blue Star was very close to the Black Star Corps headquarters, and Han Xiao and the others returned not long after. The next day, the Red Empire's transport fleet finally arrived. The enormous fleet covered the entire sky, and Planet Golden Gate seemed to have welcomed a solar eclipse. The Army headquarters became even more lively. The first batch of resources supported by the Red Empire was unloaded in the industrial zone and sent to the Army's warehouse by the mechanical workers. The first batch of Dynasty elites to be modified also stepped onto the dock of the Black Star Corps headquarters. There were 4 captains, and they each brought the elites of their respective factions. Tenny was one of the captains, and he represented the Dynasty's youth faction. This group of elites followed the Army receptionist all the way to the hall, looking straight ahead. Walking into the hall, the Dynasty elites immediately saw Han Xiao, who had been waiting on the throne for a long time. Your Excellency Black Star. Huh. The tens of thousands of dynasty elites gave a dynasty military salute at the same time, and their boots stepped on the metal floor, creating a crisp sound. Han Shao narrowed his eyes and walked down from the throne. This time, the four captains also stepped forward and shook hands with Han Shao. The four of them were all famous NPCs in Han Zhao's previous life, and Tenny was the most famous of them all. There was basically not a single player in the Red Empire camp who did not know this famous dynasty marshal. This was also the person that Han Shao paid the most attention to. Compared to his image in Han Zhao's previous life, the current Tenny was still very young, and his aura was like that of Tiger. When it was Tenny's turn to shake hands, Han Shao stared at his face and suddenly revealed a mysterious smile. "Tenny Amenlos, I've heard a lot about you." Tenny was stunned. Blackstar did not say anything when he shook hands with the others, so why did he only talk to me? "I've heard a lot about you." Has my name already spread to the Shattered Star Ring? The intelligence that he had gathered over the past few days appeared in his mind. A few days ago, he had discovered a characteristic of Blackstar. This person has some kind of prediction ability and extremely accurate foresight. There must be a reason why he only talked to me. This thought flashed through Tenny's mind, but his expression did not change. He clenched his hand before releasing it. Chapter 787. The dynasty's elite soldiers did things swiftly and decisively. The four of them briefly introduced themselves, did not request arrest, and immediately applied to undergo the modification. Hearing this, Han Shao did not reject. He would have plenty of time to communicate after the modification was completed. Buzz, with a flash of blue-gold mechanical force, the small silver cube hovered above his head. He entered the password to activate it, and the evolution energy spread out like a tide in the hall, enveloping tens of thousands of elites wearing the dynasty's standard military uniform. Putting away the evolution cube, Han Shao looked at the black cocoons in the hall and nodded. Looking at Tenny's black cocoon, Han Shao curled his lips and thought to himself, "Since you've delivered yourself to me, how can I not invest in you?" He was quite familiar with the life history of this future dynasty commander. He was one of the famous NPCs of the dynasty in many versions. Later on, he led many large fleets of the dynasty independently and was known as the dynasty's Iron Heel. He had fought many legendary battles and had outstanding performances in many versions. The dynasty's players could choose to join him and become his soldiers or officers. There were plenty of war missions. Tenny was most famous for two things. The first was in the Calamity of the Supers version, where he led his fleet to surround and kill a beyond grade A who was causing trouble without the help of any experts. The second was in the invasion of the World Tree Civilization. In order to control the overall situation, he led his fleet to charge into hundreds of star systems and stopped the enemy from invading. He fought his way into the World Tree Civilization's hinterland like a hot knife through butter, buying a lot of time. In the end, his fleet was completely wiped out by the enemy, and he died on the battlefield with countless strong enemies. Tenny's strength was only at the Calamity grade, but he was a very powerful commander, strategist, and fleet commander. He was good at cooperating with large armies, and the dynasty's fleet could display shocking strength in his hands. To the dynasty, such a powerful military talent was even more important than a beyond grade A with individual strength. According to the trajectory of his life, Tenny Aminos would hold a high position in the dynasty in the future. Now that he had the opportunity to make friends with the dynasty's future military boss, Han Shao naturally would not let it go. There were many factions within the dynasty. The first batch of dynasty elites to be modified were the elites chosen from the various factions. Most of the spots have been split up. The military youth faction that Tenny represented was a very powerful faction. He would become one of the representatives of the faction in the future, so it was worth making friends with him. Han Shaoxi knew that even though he had become an ally of the Red Empire, this was only the beginning, and he could not rest easy. Even as an ally, he had to think of ways to increase his influence within the dynasty. After all, he was not the only beyond grade A in the dynasty. I've been operating in the Shattered Star Ring for more than 20 years and can be considered a big shot. However, in the Central Galaxy, there are more beyond grade as than in the Shattered Star Ring, and many of them are veterans who have been around for many years. My influence there is very limited, Han Xiao thought. A universal civilization had a huge population, countless strong people, and many allies. The interest network was very complicated. Although he had a high position in the dynasty, his right to speak was pitifully small. This was already taking into account the additional value of the evolution cube. The other three captains beside Tenny were also well-known figures. They did not have as many achievements as Tenny, but since they were leaks that were sent to his door, he decided to take them all in one go. Speaking of which, Han Xiao suddenly had an idea. I have the evolution cube, and the Red Empire will keep sending people over. Is this considered waiting for leaks? The evolution lasted for half a day, and tens of thousands of dynasty elites broke out of their cocoons one after another. Tenny was the last to complete his evolution. He stretched out his hand and clenched his fist in front of him, familiarizing himself with the changes in his body. This feels great. Corvus was overjoyed. He originally did not have the qualifications to be chosen, but because he was Tenny's adjutant, he was given this opportunity. It's indeed very magical. It feels even better than the genetic adjustment of the Radiant Federation. Tenny nodded. The newborns of a universal civilization would usually go through free genetic adjustment when they were born to increase their potential. The genetic adjustment technology of the Radiant Federation was far superior to the other two civilizations. This was one of their specialties. The ratio of supers in the Radiant Federation was the highest in the entire galaxy. The Army Affairs officer, who had been waiting by the side, greeted them and said, "Friends from the Red Empire, the Army Commander ordered me to wait here for you to complete your evolution before bringing you to the Army's guest area to rest." Everyone nodded. Some of them were going to follow the dynasty's logistics team to explore the flickering world. The fleet was expected to rest in the Black Star Corps headquarters for a while, so they naturally had to wait. The other group of dynasty elites was only there to undergo evolution and would return to the Central Galaxy after it was done. Tenny was one of them, and Han Xiao happened to be planning to go with them. Zoel had already told them, so they had to stay in the Army's headquarters and wait for Han Xiao to depart together. They arrived at the guest area and stayed there. Not long after, Han Xiao arrived. Tenny and a few other team leaders went out to welcome him. As soon as Han Xiao entered, he first asked them how they felt about their evolution. He then changed the topic to the dynasty's internal affairs and started chatting. The elites from the Red Empire were indeed different. Perhaps because they had seen many beyond grade as officers of a universal civilization, their attitude was very natural. They were not nervous or arrogant, sitting together and chatting. He was here to build a relationship with these future dynasty military bigwigs and increase their understanding of each other so that they could become good friends in the future. He had a deep understanding of the people present, so they chatted happily. However, Han Xiao noticed that only Tenny was the calmest. He had been observing him and seemed to be on guard. This was their first interaction, so Han Xiao did not talk too much. He stood up and left after familiarizing himself with each other. Making friends without benefits had to be done step by step. Attacking as soon as they met would easily backfire. After sending Black Star off, Tenny looked at his back and pondered. What is this guy trying to do? Tenny seems to be on guard against me. He doesn't seem to be easy to get along with. Returning to the Army Commander's office, Han Xiao tapped the table rhythmically with his fingers. It was indeed not easy to make friends with high-level talents. He had to cater to their interests. Han Xiao nodded. This was his advantage. He knew Tenny's hobbies like the back of his hand. This was all hidden information that the players in his previous life had unearthed after countless trials and errors. He wondered just how many strange gifts Tenny had received over the years. He doesn't have high requirements for material objects. He only likes certain types of gifts. He seems to have a habit of collecting Star Course samples. If I remember correctly, he also likes to read mechanical theory books written by high-level mechanics. Sigh. Even outstanding people have such high-end hobbies. Han Xiao shook his head. With such an unpopular hobby, even if he wanted to give a gift, he had to use a more tactful method. Otherwise, it would be easy to expose his purpose. If others knew that he had investigated him, it might have the opposite effect. However, mechanical theory books. Han Xiaoxin thought, I'm a beyond grade A mechanic. He might take the initiative to bring it up. Putting this matter aside for the time being, Han Xiao called Nero, who was being brought around the headquarters by Hela and Reynold. Not long after, Reynold pushed the door open and entered. Army Commander, you're looking for me? I have a mission for you. As he spoke, Han Xiao turned to look at Nero, who was curious about aliens. He smiled and said, Nero, you will learn mechanical theory from Reynold during this period of time. I have to go out and do something. I'll teach you personally after I'm done. Nero was a little anxious and said with grievance, You promised to bring me around the universe. The universe was a completely foreign environment to him, and the only person he could rely on was Han Xiao. Hearing that he would be left alone in the headquarters, Nero panicked. This reminded him of his father, Bennett. He had promised to bring him out to play time and time again, but he would always use work as an excuse, leaving him disappointed time and time again. In his young world, adults would always go back on their words, and he was afraid that Han Xiao would do the same. Don't worry, when I return, I'll definitely bring you to some fun places. Han Xiao comforted him. The Central Galaxy was filled with experts, and he did not know what he would encounter. Nero was too fragile, and he would be in danger if he followed him. Thus, it was better for him to stay in the headquarters. With so many officers and allies looking after him, it would be much safer than following him. Furthermore, Nero had just awakened his mechanical force and needed to learn a lot of theoretical knowledge. Since he had to do his homework, it did not matter where he did it. He had considered leaving Nero under Reynold's tutelage for the time being. While Nero was learning the basics from Reynold, the advanced luck Glow might be able to steal this guy's perfect mechanical sense. After all, Nero was a high-level protagonist-type character, and anything was possible. It was too normal for him to awaken a talent. No problem, leave it to me. Reynold nodded. Han Xiao paused for a moment and suddenly thought of something. By the way, is your sister still in the army? Reynold was stunned. She's still here. What's wrong? It seemed like Rosalind had not run away with those 3 kids yet. Han Xiao stroked his chin. Only he and Rosalind knew about this. Even Reynold did not tell him. Then, what has she been doing recently? Has she done anything strange? Strange? I think so. Reynold thought for a moment and said with a serious expression, I realize that she hasn't been going out much recently and has been cooped up in her room. I don't know what she's doing, and she usually doesn't come to chat with me. I've asked her a few times, and she said that she's writing something, but I don't know what it is. Do you need me to help you ask? There's no need. Han Xiao waved his hand. He could roughly guess what Rosalind was doing. She was probably writing the program of the Silver Revolutionary Army. Although the goal of this group of founders was only to overthrow the 3 universal civilizations and give the other civilizations a chance to make a comeback, helping one ruling class overthrow another ruling class, they naturally could not use this method to incite ordinary people. Rosalind was the spiritual leader, and many of the slogans and ideas were written by her. She also injected her Esper ability into these ideas. He had no intention of interfering with the birth of the Silver Revolutionary Army, because this was the choice of the era. He alone could not stop the wheel of the entire era. In summary, this plot could be considered the first time in the countless years of peace in the exploration era that various advanced civilizations had teamed up to challenge the ruling position of the 3 universal civilizations. No civilization was willing to be ruled forever. When ambition and strength reached a certain limit, the new strong would inevitably clash with the old hegemony. It was simply unavoidable. Therefore, it would be better to sit back and watch the situation unfold. At least, they would have the upper hand and be easier to deal with than strangers. Han Xiao then carried the aggrieved Nero and placed him on his lap. He then called Sylvia and Holuz over and asked, I'll be heading to the Central Galaxy in a few days. I will go to the Central Galaxy in a few days. Have you prepared the manpower, warships, and resources that I asked you to send?" The three of them nodded. "Very good." Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. This trip to the Central Galaxy was not for a vacation. He had many things to do. Speaking of which, this was the first time in his life that he was leaving the Shattered Star Ring and heading to another star field. Chapter 788. The main goal of this trip to the Central Galaxy was to meet the upper echelons of the dynasty, enter the circle of the dynasty's allies, and officially step onto the stage of the Central Galaxy from the Shattered Star Ring. Other than that, Han Xiao had two other important goals. The first was to try to obtain ultimate knowledges from the dynasty. The dynasty had generously given him all the cutting-edge knowledges of the mechanic class, but the value of ultimate knowledges was even higher. Even beyond grade A allies had to make a certain amount of contributions to obtain them. The dynasty being willing to give him all the cutting-edge knowledges at once was generous, but keeping the ultimate knowledges was a rule. The status of a beyond grade A ally in a universal civilization was similar to a consecration, and the resources were not given for free. Han Xiao estimated that he would only be able to apply for ultimate knowledges after he finished exploring the flickering world. He wanted to go to the Central Galaxy and see if he could obtain them earlier. Due to the experience penalty from the evolution cube, his strength had temporarily reached a bottleneck. Han Xiao was prepared to look for other ways to increase his strength, like the other beyond grade As. Other than talents, blueprints, and skills, there were class knowledges. The rarer something was, the more valuable it was. Ultimate knowledges greatly increased the strength of any class. The highest he had was only cutting-edge knowledges, and his King's Mentor ability required ultimate knowledges to activate. His second goal was to develop his leak farm. The Shattered Star Ring was only the region of a portion of the players. There were also a large number of players in the other star fields. In the past, due to the distance and the army's insufficient strength, Han Xiao could not help them. Now that he had the opportunity to borrow the Red Empire's military cross-star field channel, he could bring his people to develop new leak farms in the dynasty's territory. This way, the fame he had accumulated among the players over the past 3 versions would come in handy. The name of the Black Star Corps was also attractive to the players of the other star fields. The players of the Shattered Star Ring were the best example. He might be able to bring some of the Central Galaxy's players back and take the leaked seedlings of others back to his own farm. Han Zhao's lips curled up. This time, I might be gone for 2 to 3 months and will return before the flickering world officially opens. During this time, I'll leave the matters of the army to you guys. It's all thanks to you bringing back so many allies from the Shattered Star Ring. Our partners are all over this star field, and the expansion of the army is coming to an end. As long as we digest these gains according to the plan, we will stabilize. You don't have to worry. Sylvia had a serious expression. I'm not worried about you guys. Han Xiao smiled and nodded. After a series of operations, the Black Star Corps had officially transformed into a beyond grade A organization and become a giant in the Shattered Star Ring. Their network of interests covered the entire star field. According to the established blueprint, more than 10,000 subbases would be built one after another, distributed in more than 10 star clusters and many star systems in the Shattered Star Ring. The expansion of their businesses was also very smooth. Through the channels provided by their partners in various industries, they had officially stepped into many business areas. The new businesses included financial group trading, intelligence selling, tourism transportation, machinery production, and so on. The core businesses were still the 3 main businesses: mercenary business, resource mining business, and military alliance business. These 3 were the pillars of the army. Among the many businesses, the only one that could not be replicated was the benefits brought by the evolution cube. There was only one evolution cube, so it naturally became the specialty of the Black Star Corps. It was because of this that the expansion of the Black Star Army had been so smooth. They had always been successful. The evolution cube was also open to the members of the army and required contribution points to exchange for the right to use it. It was because of this specialty that the army attracted far more newcomers than expected, which laid the foundation for the large-scale expansion of the army. With the tyrant's ceasefire and Cisco's surrender, there was no organization in this area that could threaten the army's position. It could be said that the Shattered Star Ring had become the headquarters of the Black Star Corps. The army had established a strong foundation here, and the next step was to open up a new market. I will take some of the Black Star Guards with me. The high-level combatants here will be handled by Deputy Commander Loggy. Don't let him slack off. Han Shao suddenly thought of something and added, also, announce to the entire army that I have been invited to the Red Empire. No problem. Sylvia did not ask why. Since he was going to open up a new market, Han Shao did not plan to let go of the players' information channels. He could release the information through the forums to let the players in the Central Galaxy be mentally prepared. Anyway, the army players were like free spammers, so it would be a waste not to use them. Leaving the headquarters this time, Han Shao was not afraid of others causing trouble. The tyrant had become an ally, and they had established a ceasefire agreement. Causing trouble would not benefit him. Cisco also temporarily stopped. Han Shao had obtained political protection through the Blue Star Civilization Conference seat. If Cisco attacked the army while he was not around, it would be breaking the rules. Furthermore, Cisco had his own race to take care of, so he would not dare act rashly. Furthermore, the current situation was different from when he was with Cisco. The evolution cube was now with Han Shao, and if he wanted it, he could only snatch it. Thus, attacking the Black Star Corps was meaningless. It was the same for ES God. As for enemies below the Beyond Grade A level, Han Shao was even less worried. With so many Calamity-grade officers in the army, anyone who dared to cause trouble was simply looking for trouble. After resting for 2 days, the fleet heading to the Central Galaxy officially gathered. Today was the day they set off. The fleet consisted of 3,500 battleships, and the main ships were 3 satellite bases. Although the satellite bases were bulky, they were also equipped with hyperdrive devices. It was just that their warp speed was not high. Han Shao did not mass-produce the Eternal Light flagship. As an ally of the Red Empire, using the Radiant Federation's flagship was too ostentatious. Han Shao treated it as a secret weapon, secretly building it and storing it in the warehouse. He did not plan to use it publicly for the time being. Tenny and the other elites of the dynasty were invited by Han Shao to board the same battleship. In the command room, all the members were in position, staring at Han Zhao's back, waiting for orders. In front of the huge porthole, Han Shao and Aim stood side by side, looking at the sea of stars outside. The light from the thrusters of the surrounding battleships shone on their faces, leaving behind mottled shadows. Are you sure you want to go? It's not like I haven't been to the Central Galaxy before. Aim smiled. I'll just treat it as a vacation. Aesop stroked his beard and said, just nice. I'll go back and visit my old friends. Han Shao nodded, retracted his gaze, and spoke with a deep voice. His voice sounded in the communication channel, spreading to every battleship. Let's go. Rumble. The hull trembled slightly, and it began to accelerate, leaving the Black Star Corps headquarters. The surrounding spaceships followed one after another, and the fleet set off. Very soon, the spaceships turned into streams of light, disappearing into the dark universe. When the fleet set off, countless army members watched from the headquarters satellites. Sylvia followed Han Zhao's instructions and announced Han Zhao's whereabouts to the entire army. Everyone knew that the army commander had received an invitation from the Red Empire to meet the dynasty's leader. That was the leader of the 3 universal civilizations, the person with the highest status in this universe. Countless army members were excited and proud. The army players became active on the forums, full of surprise. Black Star was the first person they were familiar with to cross servers. This news ignited the passion of the players in the various star fields. All along, the Shattered Star Ring had enjoyed the benefits of the Black Star Corps, and the players in the other star fields were envious. With so many deeds of the Black Star Corps circulating on the forums, and the recent news of Han Shao becoming a Beyond Grade A Super had caused a huge commotion. The benefits of the army had long been known to the players in the various star fields. In comparison, the players in the other star fields realized that the benefits of their factions were not worth mentioning at all. Now, the chance to come into contact with the Black Star Corps had arrived. The players in the Central Galaxy were overjoyed, and this topic blew up their forums. The Black Star Corps is finally going to cross star fields. Haha, that's great. We also have the chance to join the Black Star Corps. Sigh, what a pity. If only we came to the primeval Star River. The players in the Shattered Star Ring did not have any other thoughts. The better the Black Star Corps developed, the more proud they would be. At the same time, they felt that it was refreshing. Perhaps the army commander would bring the players from the other star field back. To the players at the current stage, crossing star fields was too difficult. They did not have the qualifications to use the stargates to cross star fields, and they could not afford spaceships that could travel at high warp speeds. Furthermore, they had not even finished exploring the star field they were born in. The players of the various star fields were currently playing their own games. They would only interact with each other in the professional arena. Normally, they wouldn't meet at all. Maybe the Black Star Corps will be the faction that guides us to cross star fields in the future. The possibility is very high. Now that the army has become allies with the universal civilization, and the next step is to explore the flickering world, it's like opening the era of crossing star fields for us. There were many different opinions on the forums. At the same time, in Bloodshed Land, Black Star has set off? Yes, just now. Heber sat on the throne with his fist supporting the side of his face. He looked in the direction of the palace gate and aimlessly looked into the distance. As an ally of the Red Empire, he had been to the Red Empire a long time ago and had received an invitation like Han Shao. His gaze seemed to have passed through the vast universe, and an indescribable emotion flashed through Heber's eyes. He seemed to have recalled some memories. Those guys in the Central Galaxy are not so friendly. Central Galaxy, Red Empire's mother planet. Turunamir Palace was where the dynasty's government affairs were conducted. Including the dynasty's leader, the core upper echelons were all there. It was extremely large and was a city of its own on the mother planet. This was the center of the dynasty's power. It was solemn and heavily guarded, and almost none of the government officials spoke. Two people, one tall and one short, walked side by side in a long corridor in Turunamir Palace. The warm light shone in from the windows on the left, and their shadows were reflected on the wall. When the government officials saw the two of them, they all showed respect and stood where they were, bowing their heads to show their respect. I've gathered you this time to meet the new ally. I think his name is Black Star? Yes, he came from the Shattered Star Ring and only became a Beyond Grade recently. Oh, a new Beyond Grade A from the Shattered Star Ring. I can't remember when was the last time a new Beyond Grade A was born there. I can't remember either. Isn't that Heber also from the Shattered Star Ring? Is he coming this time? I don't think so. Sigh. That's boring. Not necessarily. According to the data, this new ally is the fastest super to become a Beyond Grade A in history. His combat strength is not low. Heber and Cisco both fought him to a draw. Furthermore, he has the nickname Indestructible Body. Although he's a mechanic, his body is extremely tough. Oh, now that's interesting. I wonder who is more resilient between him and Heber. The two of them chatted casually and walked further and further away. Chapter 789. The Central Galaxy and the Shattered Star Ring were separated by a few star fields, with a large number of desolate universe belts in between. The distance was very far. Back then, even if ES God subordinates took a super high warp speed spaceship, it still took them a few years to cross this distance through hyperdrive. If it was a normal non-hyperdrive flight, the travel time would probably be measured in hundreds of millions of years. The first stop of the fleet was the Interstar Field Stargate that the Red Empire had built in the Shattered Star Ring. The Interstar Field Stargate could greatly shorten the travel time, and it was the only stable and fast way to cross star fields. Naturally formed wormholes were not included in this. The longer the distance of the Stargate, the more difficult it would be to accurately locate it. The interstar field stargate was a technological threshold that even star cluster civilizations could not achieve. The superstar cluster civilizations did have this technology, but the three universal civilizations had made a rule that no civilizations other than them were allowed to build interstellar field stargates. Therefore, the interstellar field stargates between star fields were all products of the three universal civilizations, controlled by them, and divided into civilian and military uses. Han Xiao and the others were planning to use the interstar field stargate, which was more convenient and faster. As the dynasty's high-level allies, they naturally had the authority. I've already informed the guards at the interstar field station. Once you report your identity, they will let you through and help you activate the interstar field stargate. When you arrive at the constellation corridor, there will be dynasty troops there to receive you, Zoe said. Zoel said through the communicator. The Central Galaxy was the collective name of the mother star fields of the three universal civilizations, forming the center of the universe. These three star fields were the abyss of stars under the Radiant Federation, the bright silver arm under the Arcane Church, and the constellation corridor, the territory of the Red Empire. The Red Empire's interstar field station in the Shattered Star Ring was located in a star cluster at the edge of the Shattered Star Ring. From the Black Star Corps headquarters, using the various star cluster level stargates and hyperdrive, it would take more than half a month to arrive. Han Xiao stayed in the fleet and communicated with Tenny and the other dynasty elites along the way. With his identity and status, coupled with the fact that they were on the same ship every day, most of them had formed a preliminary friendship with Han Xiao. Only Tenny's attitude remained lukewarm. He was suspicious by nature, and it was his habit to be vigilant. However, Han Xiao knew Tenny's personality quite well. If he took the initiative to please him, it would only cause him to be even more vigilant. Furthermore, it was unlikely that a beyond grade A would lower himself to please a dynasty colonel. Therefore, Han Xiao showed a fair attitude and never talked to Tenny alone. Based on Tenny's hobby, Han Xiao decided to wait for him. As a mechanic, there was a high chance that Tenny would take the initiative to ask for guidance. After all, he was a member of the dynasty, and spending time with him was the best opportunity to ask for guidance. Although he did not know why Tenny was so wary, it did not seem like there was a need to give up on such an opportunity. After setting off for about 10 days, Han Xiao finally heard Tenny knocking on his door. "You want to learn my mechanical skills?" In the room, Han Xiao got Philip to control the hovering housekeeping robot to deliver 2 cups of calming green plant drinks to the table. He then looked at Tenny and his adjutant, Corbouz, on the opposite side of the table. Tenny nodded slowly. He did not touch the drinks on the table and said, "It's not really learning. I just want to communicate with you." Since he had a favor to ask of Han Xiao, he naturally would not show a cold face. He put away part of his vigilance and humbled himself with a sincere attitude. To him, there was nothing embarrassing about this. No matter what achievements he had in the future, he was only a dynasty colonel for now. There was a huge gap between his status and Han Xiao's. Han Xiaoxin was overjoyed, but he did not show it on his face. He tapped the table with his finger and asked, "I only know that you're a mechanic, but I've never heard you say which branch you're leaning towards." "Pure mechanic, armed branch. I crossed the grade A boundary 2 years ago and became a calamity grade," Tenny said. Although I'm not from the armed branch, I can still impart some experience to you." Han Xiao smiled. As a beyond grade A, he was qualified to teach others. "That's my request." Tenny nodded. Every beyond grade A mechanic had something they were good at. Some had a unique style, and some had unique skills. With Tenny's current level, it was very difficult for him to come into contact with a beyond grade A mechanic. Now that there was someone like Blackstar, he did not want to miss the opportunity to learn from him. When he first learned that he was going to be modified, he already had this idea. After observing Han Xiao for a while, he decided to put it into action. Han Xiao talked with him for a few hours, and Tenny felt that he had benefited a lot. That's all for today. Han Xiao stopped talking, and a smile appeared on his face. He tapped his temple and said, "I just sent some theoretical information to your communicator. Some of it is my experience, and some of it is the technical theories I collected. Take a look." Hearing this, Tenny nodded and said, "Thank you." "You're welcome." Han Xiao waved his hand, held back his laughter, and said casually, "Anyway, there's nothing much on the way. If you have anything you want to ask, you can come and find me." "Okay." Tenny forced a smile, and his attitude became better. After all, he had taken advantage of Han Xiao's kindness. Han Xiao knew that he had to take the benefits in moderation, so he did not continue. Tenny bowed and left the room. His footsteps were much lighter. Looking at Tenny's back being separated by the door, Han Xiao shook his head and smiled. He was quite satisfied. With this relationship, their relationship had room to continue improving. Their affinity was about to reach friendly. With my identity, it's much easier to make friends with high-ranking people. Han Xiao sighed. If it were a player, there would be almost no way to make friends with Tenny. However, his situation was different. The current Tenny was not as accomplished as he was in his previous life. Han Xiao's status was higher than Tenny's, and Tenny was the dynasty's ally. Under many factors, even if Tenny seemed to be wary, he still came to Han Xiao's door. With Han Xiao's current status, it was much easier for him to gain character favorability compared to the players. In the next 10 days or so, Tenny would come to ask for guidance every other day. The relationship between the two of them gradually became friends. As the saying went, the one who reached the top would be the teacher. This future marshal of the dynasty was interacting with Han Xiao as a student. Of course, due to his identity, he could not really be Han Xiao's student. However, beyond grade, as did not have the obligation to impart their experience. Han Xiao being so generous was a huge favor to him. Although Tenny was suspicious, he was not someone who could not differentiate good from bad. He remembered this favor in his heart and naturally would not stay away from Han Xiao. On the other hand, every time Tenny came to ask for guidance, he would bring Corbu's along. Han Xiao also had a certain understanding of this person. This adjutant was loyal to Tenny, and Tenny treated his subordinates really well. Thus, Corbu's received quite a lot of benefits from following him. Han Xiao felt that he might be able to do something with Corbu's. Just like chasing a girl, bribing her best friend was a shortcut. Although he could not bribe Tenny's loyal subordinate, with how Tenny took care of Corbu's, if he did Corbu's a huge favor, Tenny might have a better impression of him. Half a month later, the fleet finally arrived at the dynasty's military Stargate station in the Shattered Star Ring. In the dark universe, a hexagonal Stargate floated. Dense space energy flowed within the gate, forming a dark blue vortex. Around it were the dynasty's heavy universe fortresses with guards stationed there. Unlike the civilian stations, there were no spaceships entering or exiting the Stargate. It was only supplied to the dynasty's troops. As the fleet approached, this Stargate continued to expand in their vision. As they got closer, the edges of this Stargate seemed to extend to the end of their vision. It was extremely huge and spectacular. Alert! Alert! Psionic annihilation cannon locked on. The artificial intelligence of the main ship that Han Xiao was on sent out the alert. Everyone's expression did not change. They already knew that once they entered the range of the military Stargate, they would be locked on by the guards. Stop moving forward. Report your identity. The artificial intelligence of the main ship received a message from the guards. Black Star. Han Xiao verified his identity. After a while, they received a message confirming their identity. The guards removed the cannon lock and signaled for the fleet to move forward. This time, the main ship received a communication request from the guards. After connecting, a person who seemed to be the commander appeared on the screen and spoke with a deep voice. Your Excellency Black Star, Ambassador Zoel has already instructed us to set up a route for you in advance. This Stargate teleportation is direct mode. The teleportation location is Crimson Ring Constellation Star Zone 8, directly entering the Dynasty's territory. There will be a team of guards sent by the Mother Planet to pick you up. They will open a special spiritual flight path for you and bring you to the second jump. Only then will you be able to pass through the psionic seal ring around the Mother Planet and reach the Dynasty's Mother Planet. Han Xiao nodded. Universal civilizations all had powerful weapons. In order to prevent each other from going crazy one day and using beyond visual range primordial psionic energy to destroy their mother planet, the mother planets of all universal civilizations had all kinds of cutting-edge barriers and defense measures. It was as if they were wrapped in layers of filters. Only certain methods could be used to enter and exit. Normal flight was not possible at all. Then, this commander looked at Tenny on the side and pulled out a smile on his seemingly paralyzed face. "Tenny, long time no see. It's you." Tenny's expression was a little strange. "Why are you guarding the Stargate here?" "This is an order from the superiors." This commander shook his head. There was a hint of bitterness in his eyes, but he immediately suppressed it. This commander and Tenny were both graduates of the Dynasty's Journey, Advanced Military Academy in the same period. They knew each other, and their results were also very outstanding. They should have had a bright future, but Tenny did not expect him to be sent to guard a Stargate. Guarding a Stargate was not a good job, especially a military Stargate. There was not much chance to contribute, and they would have to take responsibility if something went wrong. However, for the safety of the Stargate, they had to send out elite troops to guard it. Therefore, the officers guarding the Stargate were either randomly sent over or unlucky people who were ostracized in the faction wars. No one would take the initiative to choose this position. Hearing this, Tenny knew that this friend of his had clearly suffered greatly in the faction wars. He shook his head helplessly and said, "Then, guard it well. You'll be transferred away in a few years anyway. Treat it as training your troops." The rotation period of the troops guarding the Stargate was not long. Usually, it would be changed once every 6 to 10 years. The Dynasty would not sit back and watch their elite troops be wasted at the Stargate station. After chatting for a while, this commander ended the communication. At this moment, the fleet was about to enter the Stargate. An extremely strong suction force came from the other side of the Stargate, trying to pull them all in like a black hole. The fleet entered the Stargate, and the world outside the porthole lit up instantly. The interior of the Stargate was filled with violent space energy, but it was restrained by the Stargate technology and built a stable path. It was like a beast had turned into a tame pet. The movement of the spaceship seemed to have stopped. No one could feel any sense of speed. It was as if the fleet had stopped moving in the Stargate. However, it seemed like only an instant had passed. The spaceship suddenly shook, and the space energy around it disappeared like a receding tide. The scene outside the porthole became a pitch-black universe dotted with gem-like starlight again. The Stargate that was originally at the front was now at the back of the fleet. The distribution of the fortresses around it had also changed. The number of troops guarding this Stargate station was more than 10 times larger than before. A special fleet was waiting in front of everyone. The appearance of the spaceship was different. It seemed to be a very unpopular spaceship model. Beep, beep. At this moment, every quantum network receiving terminal received a regional broadcast from this special fleet. "Welcome to the Central Galaxy, Your Excellency Black Star. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."